here we are, another live stream, and we're going to see how it goes tonight. Hope you all are healthy. Take care of yourselves. I know it's been interesting with all the stuff going on, what we're having to do as a society to compensate or comply or whatever. So I know there'll be several showing up here, and I'm going to have a guest on tonight, and let me get him on his way. So we keep hearing all these numbers and all the craziness and stuff going on with this COVID-19 coronavirus, and you know, it can be overwhelming. Just crazy how this is affecting all of us. Anyway, I don't see anybody showing up on the little sidebar yet for comments, but I know I have 6 people watching or signed in or whatever. And I have my coffee ready to go tonight. My favorite cup, one of my favorite cups. I have several favorite cups. Can't really have one. But just filling up dead space until some people start showing up on the comment section. I don't know why there's such a lag. It seems like if I can see that there are 12 viewers, that there you go. Now I'm starting to see some people showing up. So Leonard's here. That's great. I should try to see if Leonard wants to try to get on here tonight. He would be a good person to have on. And I've got Harvey waiting in the wings. So Harvey will be on here shortly. And let's see, we got Joe, Mark Mellinson. Mark, I think it's a new name. I haven't seen that Mark before. Mason Fox, I recognize that name. So I'm glad you're here. And Rick Stevenson, Warren Witten. Nice to have everybody showing up. And I hope everybody, like I said, is staying safe and taking care of themselves and their families as we should. You know, we see these images on TV. We see these stressful things going on, people not having food or not having provisions or whatever. And it can really bear down on us as a society. But, you know, all we can do is hang in there and keep moving forward. Oh, we got somebody from Germany. I'd fix 3M. Well, welcome. Let's see. Mark has a fastback and convertible Mustang. That's cool. It's always good to have more than one. So yeah, I don't remember if we've had anybody from Germany before, but it is 1 a.m. So he's up late. Brandon Reisinger, I would guess. So, and Harvey's checking in. And so Harvey is here with us tonight. He's going to be the guest on the live stream, and maybe he can give some insight as to what's going on in his part of the world. So I'm going to bring Harvey in.
Hey, Barry.
Hey, Jack. Glad you're here. Hey, Harvey. So we have everybody starting to show up, which is great. You know, it's good to see big numbers. Oh, Ricky Lynn's here. She commented recently on that Impala video. Has some good memories on that. That was pretty cool. Let's see, Idafix. Oh, okay, Idafix Dog Maddox, the dog from Asterix and Obelix cartoon. Well, that sounds good to me. I'm not familiar with that cartoon. So we got Wade Matchett here. That's good. We've got 20 people I got to get my pointer right. Got 20 people on the screen or on the view. So Wade says 68 fastback and 66 coupe. Cool. That's great. Now tonight, like I said, I have Harvey here, and he's from New Jersey, correct?
Yeah, you got it. That's perfect.
Okay.
Southern New Jersey.
And so he's got a couple of. Okay, Idafix is saying that. Like 3X Xena's here. Great. Idafix is saying that's a popular cartoon in Europe. We have to look that one up. Mason, I'm not going to be able to give you any answers on that particular question. Yeah, can't answer that. William Davis is here. I don't know if I saw your text the other day. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up. So, okay, yeah, Jack is also from Jersey. So he's asking, what part are you from?
Kind of like the southern part, right across the Delaware River from like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, like real close to Philadelphia, just on the other side of the river.
There you go, Jack. Now you know where he's at. So you can come by and get some parts off of him.
Yeah, I got a few extras laying around.
Yeah. Ryan Bergman from Idaho. Leonard says he's trying to put together a phone. I'm not sure what he's trying to put there. He typed in ALUB. So I'm guessing there was a heavy thumb somewhere in that text. But yeah, there you go, Jack. Jack has family down that way, apparently, Harvey. So
it's good to have friends in the area.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe you all can get together and exchange some work or something, parts. Who knows?
Yeah, get together to car cruise. If we ever have car cruises again, I missed that. Yeah. I was looking forward to it all winter, and it kind of got blown out,
Yeah, and they have one locally to me. It usually has well over 100 cars show up at a pizza place, and even though I have to work on Saturdays, I can get there and catch the tail end of it and still get to see, friends and stuff and what's going on. But anyway, I'd like to get into one of those, but the weather's perfect. Right now here, it's perfect. Of course, we had a big storm go through last night, and I know, there are people in Mississippi and Tennessee that have been heavily hit by tornadoes, and I mean, I feel bad for them. That's just terrible to see that stuff. And with all this stuff going on right now in the world, and all this crazy stuff happening to our planet. So anyway, let's see. We've got let's see, let me just see what that says. Brooklyn Park, Maryland needs 63 Chevy Nova parts. Well, Ricky Lynn needs some Nova parts. So if anybody's got any Nova parts, let her know. Yep. GM3, GM Guy 3. Sorry, I didn't make an announcement. I know I've been doing this every Sunday night at 7, so didn't get a chance. I was working on that Impala today, trying to get the radiator and stuff out of it. So that's where I was kind of tied up. Oh, okay. Lender's trying to put together a photo album to send on the Torino and put a video together for it. Okay, that's cool. So anyway, Harvey and I had a conversation earlier in the week, and he's got some interesting stuff that maybe we don't share too much, because Harvey's going to have a Viewers Project video coming out pretty soon. And he's got some cool stuff, though. I'll say that. I mean, he's got a 68 Mustang he's building. And then I didn't know, I saw in your little video clip you sent me, I didn't know you had another Mustang there.
Yeah.
That was kind of a surprise to see that. I did not know that. So that's cool. That's good to have that. Now, I know in our conversation we talked a lot about the stuff you've done to that car. And you said you have a background in auto body, right?
Yeah, I worked I went probably from the mid-'80s all the way up until about 2001. And I worked in the collision industry in a body shop. I was a combination guy, combination man in a body shop. You do mechanic work, body work, pretty much everything that comes down the line. And I loved it. But I changed jobs back around then, mostly just because of benefits and stuff were better in a different company. But I'm still in the collision industry. I just don't get my hands dirty anymore.
Yeah.
But once you do that, you can't stop. So it's always been a hobby. And if you don't fix something or work on something, you go crazy. You go stir crazy.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that. I know even when I stepped away from my partnership in the body shop, which was a good thing. It needed to happen. But that's when I started working on primarily the Jade Mustang is when I started, doing stuff on that because I had time. But yeah, it's kind of hard to not keep your hands on cars and stuff if you've been doing it for a while and you actually like doing it. So
yeah.
Let's see, Dave's on here. He's got a question. Have you noticed how much even base Mustang prices have increased? I have not really paid attention too much, Dave. I don't know if you have, Harvey, if you've noticed or paid attention to it.
Yeah, cars that, I think used to go for, well, at one time they went for next to nothing.
Right.
And then they started picking up a couple years ago. And now I see cars that are as bad as the one I bought for, probably under $1,000. Now they look like they're, 3 years later, they're going into $3,000, $4,000, $4,500 range. And some of them, you have to wonder if they're parts cars or ones that, really can be saved.
Well, that's true. And, it may be that the resources are starting to dry up. When you start losing all those low entry level cars and now people that are wanting them, they're going to pay extra money to get, a really low dollar car that needs a lot of work, unfortunately. So we got Lake Erie Mustang. First restoration here, 68 coupe. Videos are a great help. That's cool. I'm glad. First restoration, I like to hear that. You get a bell for that. So if you haven't been on any of these live streams, if you make a good comment or a good answer to a question or whatever, you get a little bell as a reward. So it's kind of like what is it? Was it? They did that thing with the dog treats. The dogs. What I can't remember. Was it Pavlov? Pavlov, I think, was the. And he trained
every time he saw a dog biscuit.
Yeah. So you're working for the bell. You got Brendan on from New Zealand. It's good to have Brendan here. Of course, I know now it's only about noon where he's at, but it's tomorrow, so you got to remember that. Let's see. Pavlov. See, I was right. And look at that. Dave answered it. I'll give him a bell, but I get a bell too because I got it right. Pavlov. All right. So you've been working you're in the collision industry right now. And you say you keep your hands, keep them clean as much as you can. But I know you spend time out in the garage on the Mustang. And the Mustang you have right now, the one you're building, how long have you been working on that?
So my one now, it's actually my first classic Mustang, and I got it just about 3 years ago, almost to the day. And I got it not with the intention, you have to kind of love building the car. If you buy it just to drive it, when you have to fix it up for a couple of years, it's really not any fun.
Right.
This has been like a learning experience. At one time, I really thought that these classic Mustangs, there weren't any parts available for them. And when I started researching it, I found that there's almost a whole car available in the aftermarket world if you need to.
Right.
And honestly, I came across your videos, and although I knew how to put frame rails in Ford Tauruses and Chevy Impalas and stuff like that, it's a lot different working on this car. It's a whole different animal. If you started in the mid '80s as a late model collision repair technician, you never saw one of these cars. And honestly, I don't think I ever saw. I think one car, I put a little rear rail section in a '65 Mustang one time, like the last foot that goes around the leaf spring. And that was about it for classic Mustangs to me.
Yep.
So, watching videos like you make and kind of seeing how they're laid out, different techniques on things you run into. I love watching somebody else get into it before I go in and break it.
Yeah. And that seems to be my style. I have enough experience with so many different cars, not just Mustangs or whatever. Growing up in a junkyard, I had my hands on all kinds of makes and models and whatever. And so, as I mentioned before, when I was a kid growing up, I would look at how a car was wrecked. We would get cars from the auction or whatever. My dad would buy cars, and I would almost do like a investigation type thing when I was a kid, because I wanted to understand why the car folded this way or why it went that way, or why this broke, and all these different scenarios. And so from that, I just instinctively learned a lot of this stuff by default, I guess. When you see so many cars get hit and this piece collapses and goes this way, you kind of think about it a little bit. Well, that impact must have done this or done that. Kind of the same way with the collision stuff today. You look at a car whenever you've probably seen the videos and stuff with the industry where a car gets hit on the front end, and they'll do a slow motion. You can see the wave go all the way through the car. You can actually see the ripple go through the roof, through everything. And it's hard to believe that actually happens. Now, of course, the old cars, like these Mustangs or whatever, I don't know they did that quite as well. They were just kind of, and everything just folded up and hauled it off to the junkyard. It didn't get pushed into the collision repair like today's cars.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's good to have that information at your visual, to see this stuff. And I know a lot of times I get quite, like you're talking about the frame rails, I get a lot of questions about the frame rails and how, there's chart or drawings out there on the internet that say, this is your datum line, this is this point, this is this point. More often than not, somebody does those measurements and they're like, none of this is right. Nothing matches.
It's funny you brought that up. When I did the front frame rails in my car, it had been hit. The one rail had been sectioned back in the 70s. You could tell by the old style welds on it and things. They actually got it in pretty close to the right place. But I went through, pages and pages of internet looking for frame specs on this thing. And I finally found one that I thought looked pretty good. And it said down the bottom, Ford Motor Company, 1968 and all that. And so I'm measuring the car. And, I started off with putting it up on jack stands, shimming it and leveling it until I had the car, right where I wanted it. And then using that, as a level platform and datum line. And the one spec I wound up almost building the car off of was really close on all the upper measurements. Mm-hmm. But some of the measurements out to the end of the front rails, when I looked at them, at first I was thinking my car was badly damaged or sagged or whatever, because there was no possible way that those measurements would work. Like the fender, I'd have like a 4-inch gap at the bottom up to the door if I went with it. So I kind of went and measured the car, made some corrections to the sheet, got to where I thought I was pretty good, allowed for the height for the jack stands for my datum line, and then wound up going with that. And again, I think you said it in your videos too. Put it on, get it in place, but you got to mock this stuff up, and see where your lines are. See if they're still good. Just because the measurements are on doesn't mean your body panels fit.
No,
you got to double check everything. Like it's the measure twice, cut one.
Oh, you locked up on me, Harvey. We'll get back to Harvey in a second. We got a new guy here, 84 Chevy C30. Glad he's here. And a welcome from GM guy. Brendan's talking about the in New Zealand, they have a 71 Mustang Coupe for sale, 351 Cleveland, FMX, 9-inch needing penwork, full interior build for $12,500. Now, we know that in New Zealand, the prices are quite a bit different than here in the States. So might need a conversion from Brendan to let us know what 12.5 means here in comparison to New Zealand. So, all right, we got Harvey back. He froze on us.
little internet trouble there.
That's okay. It's pretty common. There's lots of people on the net, and I feel like if I hadn't upgraded my service several months ago, that we wouldn't be able to do this at all. I know it had to happen, so I spent some money on it. But you were saying that you test fit the panels, and then make everything fit so the panels fit is basically the concept.
Yeah. And then, you know, there's another judgment call I found when I was doing this. You know, if you've got the car supported in the middle, you have to allow a little bit for the end. You know, you can prop it up in the right place, but when the weight of the car is on its feet, it can change a little. And, you know, I kind of thought I had to anticipate that a little. And, you know, years of experience, I took a guess at it and got it right. I, you know, made a slight difference in the measurements, and it fell into place. You know, little luck, little skill. Sometimes the planets line up, sometimes they don't, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not all hard measurements. There's a lot of fit anticipation in it, too, you know, to get it right. In the end, I did 2 front frame rail sections complete, you know, all the way from underneath the floor support all the way up to the front of the car, and then torque boxes. And, you know, long, slow, and careful. But the good thing about doing a car in your garage on the side is you're not really on a time schedule.
Right.
You can take as long as you want to make it right.
Yep.
And,
yeah, that's what it takes. Patience.
mm-hmm.
That's a big thing. Yeah, Dave and I have a connection because we communicate on Facebook, and you know, he has a background with the junkyard as well, and he points out that he was doing a different type of investigation. He was trying to see what it would be like to be inside during the crash. So yeah, I did some of that too. I will say I was kind of curious about, you know, what happened to people and stuff like that. So let's see. And I'm not trying to lose anybody here. Pete Rice, he has 2 65 Mustangs. That's cool. And then we've got Tim Spikerman, 68 Barracuda. That's interesting. Don't see those every day. And nobody 66 is here. RMD is asking, have I worked on a 59 Apache? Not directly. I mean, I've worked on a 55. I built a 55. Basically the same truck. You know, just the front clip is different. So Brendan did do a conversion for us. His 12.5 or something, whatever the number was, converts to 76.25 here in the States. And now for 71, you know, they're not the most popular. And we've talked about this before. Like, you know, Leonard has talked about his, I want to say Cougar, but anyway, Leonard's talked about his car, and there's a niche market for each type of car, you know, like the Torinos and stuff like that. Cougars, there's certain people who like those particular cars. And, you know, if it's like the 71 to 73 model Mustangs, there's a niche market for those as well. Now, they didn't have the production numbers, I don't think, that the earlier models had. And the market, I feel, is limited on those because they just weren't quite as popular. But there are people who are connected to them, so, you know, they want to build them. And I don't know, in the States, 71, like Brendan is describing, that would be a big chunk of money for 71, for a 7625, needing all the panel work done to it. Let me see what else we have here. Chevy Apache, Fleet Side Truck 59. Oh, let's see. Leonard says, talking about the Taurus, how many know Ford put a V8 in the Taurus for just a short run? I did not know that.
I didn't know that one either.
So Leonard gets another bell. Leonard gets a lot of bells. He's got a lot of information. He should have his own YouTube channel talking about stuff because he would have a lot to share. Reese Richter is saying 12.5 is 20,500 in America. Okay, so we're going the other way. So that car in the States was 12.5, and it was 76.25 in New Zealand. So that's the opposite. But still, 12.5, that's outrageous for a 71 coupe that needs all the panel work done. Everything, you know, that's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a 71 going in that range, period. Yep. Kev Chat, gap everything. You're right. Make everything right. Because it doesn't matter. Like Harvey's saying, you can have all the measurements dead on, and then hang a fender, and you can put your thumb on it between the fender and the door. It just, you can't go by that. You can use it as a reference, but you just can't go directly by that. Jeff H, hey guys, I'm about to slide the floor pin under my 66 convertible. Got all my holes drilled out and welted primer drying on it now. That's awesome. I'll give Jeff a bell for that, for putting in the floor pan under the 66 convertible. I know all about that. Getting lots of comments. Let's see.
I think a lot of people have been having plenty of time to work on these project cars. It's probably keeping a lot of people sane, having a little distraction away from all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
And get what's done on your project car.
Yeah. I've got, John Crowlin he's in Liverpool, UK. So glad to hear John's here. I don't know what time it is in the UK. Got a happy Easter from Kev Chat. Stephen Edge checking in. Let's see. Oh, well, maybe I'm wrong, Reese. I don't know. Oh, here we go. We got Tom from France. Tom Paget. Gotta say that name right. Oh, let's see. Here's a question from Dave. And Barry, when did you buy your first Mustang and what was it? Actually, the first Mustang that I bought was Jade. That's the first Mustang that I bought, that I've have ownership of completely. As I said before, I've worked on Mustangs at my dad's junkyard. There was my sister had a 69 coupe. I rebuilt a 70 coupe that never got put on the road, but I rebuilt the thing myself when I was 17. It was wrecked, got hit so hard the right front tire was pushed into the passenger floor well. And so I straightened all that out at like 17 years old, learned a lot doing that. But my first Mustang is the Jade, and technically the only other Mustang I own is the Straight Pony that I've talked about before, the 65 coupe that's sitting in my garage. But yeah, that's it. Okay. So Dave references the SHO Taurus. So maybe we've heard of that, Harvey. I know you've heard of the SHO, but I don't know what year that was that they had those with the V8. It had to be early 90s for that model. Let's see, Jeff, 20,000 for that Mustang would be a lot, but you'd be baller rolling an American muscle car down in New Zealand. Yeah. That's true. Here we go. The Lincoln LSC came diesel in the 80s. Well, that's something I didn't learn before. I don't know. Lincoln LSC. Never heard of that one. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Leonard says he wouldn't have time. He's too busy watching. And we got Jordan. Hey, I think I had dinner with that guy on the right. Love your channel, Barry.
That's my son. Jordan's another motorhead too.
All right, that's great. I'll give Jordan a bell for that, for having that's why your internet's not working. Your son's tapping in. All right. So and then Jordan, how old is Jordan?
Jordan's 21. He's
21.
He's a Ford mechanic. Went through the Ford Asset Program, if you ever heard of that.
No, I have not.
So his senior year of high school, he was going to a technical school, and Ford sponsors a program where if you have enough academic classes completed. So his senior year of high school was like his first year of college, and it was a combination of college courses and a lot of tech classes from Ford. They have a shop that they work in. They have cars that they put bugs in. And then they have to, track down what's wrong with it.
Yep.
A lot of testing. When they're done, they come out with a pile of certifications. It's like a telephone book, and they can basically walk into a Ford dealer if they want to and be doing warranty work. Like right out of the gate, they can do a lot of work that they're certified to do. I've been a mechanic for my whole life, and when it started off, I was like, "Oh, I'll help you out with this," and then getting towards the end of the class, I was like, I'm going to sit in and watch this lesson because I need to learn something here,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There's too much to learn on the new stuff. There's too much, but that's good. I'm glad to hear he's involved, and I'm sure he's in demand. He's got to be, working.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for them to get situated in a dealership if they want to.
Right.
But you're also qualified to go work for an independent shop too. There's a lot of things that are open.
Good.
Even in management or something like that. They have a lot of neat classes. You graduate. He was 19 with a 2-year degree and all his certifications, and really good teachers. So it was a great program to go through. And I never heard of it until I guess maybe a year before he actually got into it.
That's cool. I know for me, growing up in Pennsylvania, we had a vocational school that it was within the county. And you had, I don't know how many schools would send students to that school. So the way it worked for us was we would go to regular school for a week and then Votech for a week. And we did it for 3 years. And so they had automotive, auto diesel, welding, machine shop, carpentry, food services, health, like nursing and stuff like that. Bricklayers. I mean, it was really interesting and it was fun because we got to learn a trade while we were, going to school. And so I took a carpentry course actually, because my dad was a heavy construction carpenter, and he, I was interested in learning stuff. So I took cabinet making and stuff like that, which all that stuff really comes into play later on in life whenever you're working on a house or whatever. But even doing body work, you think about the sanding techniques and stuff like that. Some of the woodworking you do involves a particular type of sanding. So you have to have some finesse with that. But I love the vocational stuff. I wish there was more opportunities for people to do that stuff. And you just don't see it very often anymore. So that's great. I'm glad he got in there.
Yeah, really cool program.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny, when I was in high school, I was pretty convinced I was going to be an architect.
Okay.
I love mechanical drawing and took architecture. The only thing was, once I got out, I realized that everything had gone to CAD and computer aided drafting, and I like to have a pencil in my hand.
Right. Yeah.
So I could change directions, and it became cars instead of houses.
Yeah. We got Bob saying the SHO Taurus was a Yamaha motor, and it was a beast. Leonard points out that it was a 96 model. So yeah, early mid 90s. I'm not sure about, somebody said turbocharger or turbo or supercharger. I don't know particular on that. Stephen Edge says the quarantine is letting me get my 91 Mustang interior back together and restored. Yep. Let's see. Yeah. Thank you, Kev, for the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Oh, here we go. Here's a question. I think it's a question. Oh, no, it's just a statement from Laying Low DVD. Hey, guys, I'm starting my 6.3 Impala. Could build and watching videos, learning and take. Good. All right, that's cool. Oh, here we go. Nick's asking about putting his a new carburetor on his 78 F-150 4x4 that he has. I don't know if you've seen any of his videos. If you go check out Nick Pixel TV, you can see his 351M that he's bought. I don't know what's on it right now, Nick. If it's stock carb. Leonard might be able to give you a good answer on that as to what may be a good alternative for that particular truck. But I'm sure that you can upgrade it. Let me see what else I got here. Oh. Okay. Yamaha. Okay. That's William saying it was the Yamaha. I'm guessing he was the talking about the Taurus. Well, here's a question. Do you think acrylic sanding blocks have made Durablocks obsolete? That's a good question, because I don't know. Have you used any of those, Harvey?
Sometimes I feel like my technology's stuck in the 90s and 2000s. I'm still using my rubber sanding block, and then I've got the board with the handle on it. I got a longer one, and then maybe a 10-inch or whatever it is.
Right.
And I'm so used to using those that it's going to be hard to switch over to something different.
I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the acrylic sanding blocks, so I don't know the pros and cons of those. I've used the Durablocks, and I'm very happy with the Durablocks. So if anybody's used those, acrylic sanding blocks. Chime in, let us know what you think, because I don't know on that one. Let's see. Go ahead.
I know one of my favorite tools that I found just by talking to a body man who's still in the shop, a couple of years ago, was that portable belt sander.
Yes.
I found that a while before you did the video on yours.
Yep.
And man, that thing is great. It gets into places that you can't reach anything else. And I mean, I clean rust with it. I sand things with it, shape things with it. It's got so many uses, and you can slow it down or speed it up.
Yeah. I agree.
Used it to shape things. When I fixed my B pillars on my car instead of replacing them. And some of the areas you can't reach with anything, but you can get in there with that little belt sander and dig in and make it look really good. So
yeah, and it's hard to think about how nice it is to have that tool. When I made the video demonstration, going up between the frame rail and rear and the drop off panel, and being able to just get up there and clean up the weld, I'm like, this is I've needed this for a long time. Mark is saying the LSC was based on the Fox Body Mustang, similar to T-Bird and Cougar in the 80s. Interesting. And that was a diesel-powered Lincoln. I guess I'd have to see one of those. Kev Chat, they get out of school with associate degree. It would be nice if they were taught the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights.
They probably got that.
I can't argue with that. Let's see. Kev Chat, he's a machinist. All right. Doug Coach, last year my brother-in-law sold the 73 Mach 1 he had bought new as a 4-speed 351 Cobra Jet. He sold it for 25,000 Canadian, roughly 18,000 US. Yep. Yeah, and that's the advantage of that particular car. If you're talking about a true Mach 1 4-speed, that's different than a 71 coupe. That's not quite as appealing. But that's pretty good to get that number for that car. Let's see. So Mark is a senior master tech for Ford. Cool.
Nice.
That's very good. Oh, there's a question that he's putting up to Doug, GM guy. I'll let Doug answer that question. Okay. So now we have, and I want to say this right. I know it says Jan. So I don't know if you would say that Jan or Jan. I don't know how you say that. Martinson. Norway 69 Mach 1 restoration with good help from Barry YouTube. Cool. Yeah, we haven't. I think it's the first we've seen. I want to say Jan. I don't know why I want to say Jan, but he can correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like I should say Jan. I don't know. But I'm glad you're here. Kev Chat, my dad had a Ford Bronco 78 with 400 in, put a Holly I think you mean Dominator intake, and then change the back jets. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's answered Nick Pixel's question or not. That's a good question. Well, here we go. We'll put Leonard up. Ford also put the Yamaha V6 in, I think, the 87, 88 TARs. Also don't remember the year. Okay. Little more information from Leonard. GT Wing, what tool have you acquired that you wish you'd gotten sooner? Well, like Harvey was saying, that little belt sander is the latest thing that I bought that I really wish I would have had sooner. But probably the biggest thing that I've ever bought that I really enjoy having is my plasma cutter. That thing is just a magic show. I mean, you fire that up. I want this gone. It's gone. That's the beauty of a plasma cutter. Of course, you can get hurt with it, and you can cause serious damage to whatever you're working on. So you have to, be careful with how you use that stuff.
I picked up a tool recently. Actually, I was at an Eastwood flash sale. They did not too far from my house, where they moved into a little warehouse for a short time, and I think they were there for like a long weekend. Had some demonstrations and stuff. I bought one of those air-powered reciprocating saws, kind of a small one, and you put like a fine blade on it.
Okay.
They're maybe about like 10 inches long or so, and it really makes a clean cut. I was surprised at how how fine a line you can cut with the thing and get
Right.
into little places. I had kind of a bigger one before. It was kind of sloppy and I didn't use it a whole lot. And, you know, the last quarter I did in my car, I was in there, you know, trimming things with it and wheelhouses. And I think that was one of the best, like, it was pretty cheap. It was maybe like $30 or $35. And well worth the money on that one if you don't have one of those and you're doing sheet metal work.
Now you're saying a recip saw. So it's like a, I mean, I'm trying to picture how that, if it's air powered.
You know what? Let me see if I can, hang on one second.
Yeah. Let me answer Steve's question. He's asking how the Baxter belt sander compares to the other version Harbor Freight has. I don't have an answer for that because I have not used, oh, there we go. Okay. I have not used the other Harbor Freight version.
That's an Eastwood one that I got. And I burned through two Harbor Freight electric ones, putting my floors in, and I finally decided I just gave up, and I'd rather cut them by hand than burn up another Harbor Freight electric saw.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked a lot of their tools, but that wasn't one of the ones that met with the durability test after a while. You know, but I guess cutting along a big long slice down a transmission tunnel was more than they could handle.
Yeah.
It was basically one saw per floor or per side.
That's why I love that plasma cutter. Man, yeah. Just cut it out. Let's see. We got Brian. Oh, good. So Brian made it. He's just getting here. Dry guide coat or spray? Well, that's up to you. I use guide coat. I know a lot of people spray on a light coat of black on top of their high build primer, but I use guide coat because I have it. So
I got bit by that one time. I sprayed. I guess it was like an enamel spray paint over some gray primer, and use it as a guide coat.
Yep.
And then when I laid the next, I think when I was laying either a sealer or something over it, I got little tiny fish eyes where the little, even though you couldn't see them anymore, it must have somehow contaminated the primer a little bit.
Wow.
And disturbed it. So now it's guide coat or nothing because only burn. I didn't want to get burned again doing that one.
I don't blame you. I've never tried to actually use spray. I've only ever used guide coat. So, I mean, it works. I trust it. But like I said, some people will do a spray, paint. They may use instead of using, did you use like a glossy enamel or something like that? Or did you use a primer?
I think I might have used like a glossy enamel. I probably grabbed what was on the shelf thinking I'm going to sand it all off anyway.
Right.
But that really wasn't the right answer.
And maybe that was where you got bit, because if you had used a sprayable primer, it may not have acted at all. It may have just ridden it out. But Sean, I'm glad to hear you're getting to work on your car. Just started restoring 66 coupe that he's had since '88. Man, last drove in '90. Good. I'll give you a bell for that. I'm glad you still have the car and you're working on it. That's great. Let's see. Doug's saying he's got a '68 Mustang. Would you recommend a complete rewiring? That's debatable. You're gonna hear horror stories of cars catching on fire because of bad, wiring harnesses and stuff. I'm like my '68 that I'm using. I replaced the engine harness because it had been chopped up and sectioned and whatever many times. And so I bought a new front harness. As I go forward, as I move back into the interior of the car and stuff, I'll look over all the wiring and see if there's any obvious cracks or wear and stuff like that, and kind of make an assessment from that point. I can't say for sure that it's mandatory that you redo the wiring, but just look it over really good. If it's depending on the environment it's been in, you could have wires that are prone to cracking and stuff like that real easily, or if mice have gotten in there and chewed on stuff. So you have to kind of consider the variables that come with where the car has been and, stuff like that. So it's a yes or no. I mean, I'm not against it, but I can't say for sure you have to. So.
A lot of that too, I think, comes to who had the car before and how bad did they chop up the wire harness. Sometimes you find some really bad splices and things that people have, done to correct. Instead of fixing the problem right, they'll jump something out and overload another wire.
Right.
You kind of like ones that are a little more untouched sometimes than ones that have been hacked on.
Yes. Yeah. Kev uses Hutchins sanders. That's a good sander. Let's see. There you go. There's a question for you.
I found, well, first of all, when you buy the saw from Eastwood, they do give you, I think it came with a little pack of blades. I was wandering around Home Depot and found a blade that fit in the saw too. So I've experimented with a couple different ones, and the saw runs a little fast, maybe for some cheaper blades. But I think if you buy a good blade, they hold up pretty well, and they're pretty obtainable. You don't have to keep ordering them through the mail or anything. You can stop in your local, home improvement store and find them too. Let's get a metal one for our car work.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, Reese is asking what happened with Mustangs Monthly. I think he means Mustangs Unlimited. That'd be my guess. I'm guessing that's what he's asking because I'm not sure what Mustangs Monthly, if that was a magazine called, well, I don't even know what it was called, if it was Mustang Monthly or not. But if you're referring to Mustangs Unlimited, they're gone. They're closed up and gone, everything I've heard. Let's see, GT, I heard those Eastwood style air saws break a lot. So apparently from what you're saying, Harvey, yours is doing fine, holding up fine.
I was gonna say, so far I have probably about, well, I've got days and days of cutting and shaping floors and footboards and stuff. I've gotten a little crooked and busted a couple blades off in it, and broke the blade, but never actually broke the saw. So far so good. I got it in December, and that was right before I tore into and did the toe board and the whole driver's side floor section in my car. So it's got a few miles on it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's definitely better than the electric Harbor Freight version. So
yeah,
I don't know if it comes with any kind of warranty or not. I've not bought tools like that or anything from Eastwood. So let's see. Steve says, okay, Top Cat makes great saws or TC service tools. So not familiar with those, but I'll take your word for it. Steven, those body saws that Harvey had are great for sheet metal. Definitely recommended. There you go. So you get a little endorsement from Steven as well. Okay, so Leonard's asking me about the diamond blades that I've been showing in my videos, and Bad Dog Tools. That's their logo. There it is, Bad Dog Tools. And I've been very happy with these. I bought the small one. I bought the 3-inch one for my air powered cutter, 90 grinder, and I haven't used it that much. I found that the electric 4.5-inch on the the electric grinder has really done everything I need it to do, and so I recommend these. They're not cheap, but according to the company, it has a lifetime guarantee, and I haven't had any issues with mine. So I can't say that how hard it is to honor that guarantee, but that thing has been cutting everything I put in front of it. So again, not cheap, just saying. But that's a tool, Leonard. So okay, Kev Chat uses Southern Poly's black and gray epoxy. I think I've had somebody else mention, I don't know if maybe it was Kev before, about Southern Poly stuff. I think they're in North Georgia, if I remember correctly. So, John, we don't have Harbor Freight in Europe. It'd be cool if we did. Yeah. Well, that's one advantage we have in the States is we have Chinese tools at Harbor Freight.
Yeah, when you're not using them every day in the shop, it is okay to have some tools that cost, a tenth of what some of the other stuff does.
Oh,
when
yeah.
You use them once every 2 years,
Well, and the fact that for me, Harbor Freight is a 10-minute drive, so if I break something, boom, I got it. I'm back up and running the same day. Warren's asked me about my Facebook page, and the Facebook page is Joe Daddy's Garage, same as it is here. So if you were to go on Facebook, search for Joe Daddy's Garage, you'll find it.
You do some on Instagram too, don't you, Barry?
Yeah, I also have an Instagram. Same thing, Joe Daddy's Garage. And Harvey has an Instagram too. You go check out his. It's just Harvey. Or how's yours put together?
It's Project 68 and then Rally Cat Garage.
Okay, so there you go. You can look at Harvey stuff on Instagram. Because it definitely has some cool projects going on there. Let's see. Got a bunch of stuff popping up. Yeah, okay. Mustangs Unlimited was Reese meant. Yeah, you know, I've thought about this too. To get or make an English wheel. Yeah, I mean, we had one at the body shop. It was a Harbor Freight brand. I mean, it was nothing expensive, and it was helpful for some things, but we didn't have a whole lot of curves that we had to develop. I know when I did worked on the 65 Galaxy 500 convertible, I used it to make some of the help make the quarters or patchwork for the quarters that it needed. But other than that, really, I didn't use it that much, but it's just a cool piece to have overall. Let's see. What we got here? BK Woods, my 66 Comet Cyclone. I showed you is finally getting painted. So I'm working on little things like cleaning door latches and other stuff. Would you blast them or just clean them? Well, for me, I'm going to blast them. I mean, I'm like, if I rebuild the hinges or something, I'm going to take them all apart, blast them, get all the old junk off of them, you know, clean them up, paint them, put bushings in, all that sort of thing. It's just how I do things. But if they're in good condition, you know, maybe you can get away with just doing maybe a wire brush cleanup and throwing some paint on them. So condition is the most important thing with the pins. Kev says Sue makes great air tools. So I'm not familiar with Sue brand. Have you heard of them, Harvey?
No, I don't think that's one that's in my toolbox either.
Yeah. I mean, I still have I have a pair of a 90 grinder and a straight grinder. We call them 90 grinders. I don't know what else you want to call them, but I call it a 90 grinder. I have a pair of those that I bought in 1991 that are Mac tools that still work today, and they've never been rebuilt. I mean,
I've got a Viking grinder, a Chicago pneumatic. I just call it my 3-inch radiac cutter, but you know, a 3-inch cutoff wheel, just a straight one.
Yeah.
And an impact gun that's a Chicago pneumatic. All those are from '86, and I've been beating those tools to death since I got them. And they still work great. I mean, I don't have any other ones. You know, I've never replaced them because they still work great. They're just tough tools. Yeah.
I mean, I was pointing that out on one of my videos that I have an air tool that I didn't even know where it came from, that I've been using for years and years and years. And it actually belongs to my buddy who lives next door. And he had got it whenever it was being tossed out because they were replacing all the old tools. It wasn't even rebuilt. It was just throwing stuff away. And he got a hold of it, and then I got a hold of it, and I've been using that thing every single day, it seems, you know, grinding or cutting. GT's asking, do you ever use some sort of Dremel shaft rotary tool? I found they have saved me sometimes in intricate areas that needed sanding. I do. I don't know about you, Harvey, but I know I use certain tools like that.
I have one. It's almost permanently mounted in a an air tool. I call it my peanut grinder, but it's kind of shaped like a cone. And it's probably got a real high quality, like a carbide bit, kind of shaped like an acorn, but it's stretched out a little bit.
Yep.
And I use that on all kinds of, you know, funny little corners and angles that you can't get into a lot of other places. And it's got to be one of the most useful tools out there. And it kind of saves the day when you can't reach just something else that no other tool will get in there, and you get in there with that thing. That's one of my favorites.
That's what I was going to talk about with what I have is it's like this. This is probably similar to what you're talking about. These are called rotary files because that's what they are. It's like a file that spins really fast. You put it in an air tool. And in this case, I have another attachment on this one where it has a sanding roll that you can slip onto the end of it. So I have various sizes of this, so I can get into really get into little areas and clean it up. Because the rotary tool is great but it'll, it's great for cleaning up a hole and stuff like that. But if it, jumps, it'll make a mess. Just so, it'll make a mark.
Once they start jumping, it's kind of hard to stop.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
This is my favorite one that I have.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And I sometimes change it. I have a few different versions, but this is the one that gets all the miles on it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it must have been, I probably got it from a Mac or a Snap-on guy years ago, because the amount of miles it has on it and it still actually cuts and does something is just amazing. I probably would never get another one like that if I looked for it,
Right.
But
And
handy tool though.
I know a lot of machinists, so that's where I get these is from my machinist friends. They have these, so they're very handy, very, very handy. Let's see. It's hard to keep up with all the comments. I'm trying to. We got Anthony. Anthony is Guido. Guido was having trouble typing last week because he's got a broken hand or arm or something, and I know he was struggling to respond to some of the questions on here. Yeah, Kev Chat says 90-degree angle grinder. Yeah, but it's like this one. Oh, what do you just say? Air grinder? I don't know. I just, that's why I call it. I don't know if there's another technical term for it or not. Yep. Yeah, keep them oiled, keep them clean. And I also admit, I don't.
I feel guilty sometimes and drop a couple oils, a couple drops of oil in my tools, but I sometimes go weeks and months without doing it, I admit.
Well, I'll be honest. The brands like this one from Harbor Freight, I don't think I've ever put oil in these. And everybody's going to go, why? Well, part of it is the exhaust on these. Like the 90 grinder, it blows forward, which I like because it helps blow stuff away from you while you're working on it. But it also, by doing that, if you have oil in it, it blows oil into your stuff.
It contaminates your job. Yeah.
Right. So for me, for what I'm doing, like this one, I believe it ports out the back. So it's no big deal on this one.
Yeah,
but
that's what
my
Blue Point does too. It goes out the back.
But like the 90 grinder I use all the time, it blows out the front. And like I said, the advantage is it blows stuff away from you while you're doing it. Disadvantage is if you have it, put oil in it and it blows into your work, you've contaminated this, So I would rather not put oil in that particular tool. And I know I've burned up probably 5 of those things in the last 10 or 12 years. They're $24. I'm not going to justify contaminating my work for $24 for one of these, air tools, whatever. But that's just me, by all means, if you want to put oil in them, do it. And certain ones they need oil. So let me see where I'm at here. Yep, Stephen Edge, super good tools. Use a lot in my aviation career. I don't know if I've seen Stu brand, but I'll have to take your word for it. Yeah, Leonard says, sounds like keep my wood up, and my Central Pneumatic I got in 78. See, I knew that. CP, Central Pneumatic.
They're tough.
78 storage, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a sandblast, but sand gets into areas and will cause rust. Yep. Let's see. It's hard to, and when I go to click and move forward on this thing, it like jumps to the bottom of the list. I don't know how much you can see when I'm doing this, but here we go. So GT, thoughts on oscillating tools. I found them to be really helpful for all sorts of things. Bosch makes really good blades. Have you used one of those, Harvey?
No, I don't think I have.
I don't have one of those. I've looked at them, and I think if I'm understanding correctly, it's that one with that little blade on the front.
You know what? I retract that statement. I have a Harbor Freight one of those. I call it I think I call it a multi-function tool.
I think that's what.
When I did the quarters on my Mustang, I had rust and damage and buckles all the way up to the factory lead line. So I cut the quarter off with my 3-inch radiac cutter, I call it, and I still had a piece of sheet metal spot welded to the body of the car underneath the sail panel. And the tool that got that out the best was one of those oscillating tools with a blade on it. And I could kind of slide it up. I mean, it's only the thickness of a piece of sheet metal or less.
Right.
Up and cut through the couple spot welds that were up in there real nice and clean without distorting anything. Then just slid the metal out. So that was a really useful tool if you're doing a full quarter on I guess on at least on a Mustang coupe. It worked really good on that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting emails as we're communicating. So yeah, I don't have one of those tools, but I want to get one just because I've seen some great things you can do with them. And like you're saying, for that purpose, it sounds like it did its job very well. DP's asking what kind of compressor you use and water separator, etc. What about electric? For me, I just have it's over in the corner. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's an old, what is that thing? I don't know. It's one from like Northern Tools. It's like a 60-gallon upright, 5 horsepower. And with me in the shop, that's all I need. It keeps up with everything I do. But that one's getting tired. I'll say that. I know the compressor's getting weak on it. It's running longer than it should. But that's what I use. And I have a little separator on just for a Harbor Freight deal that connects in line. And then I also, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm painting or something, I use one of those inline separators that you put on the backside of the gun to keep water out. But other than that, that's all I use. I would like to have a dryer on the shop, but I don't know that I'll ever get to that point.
Sounds like you got the exact same setup I do. I've got a 1990, bought it from BJ's 5-horse, 60-gallon upright compressor.
Yep.
And I've used that long and hard over the years, maybe done like, 2 or 3 oil changes on it at the most. It just blew a head gasket a couple weeks ago. And, I looked online and it took me about 2 minutes to find a parts list for it. I ordered a new $15 head gasket, put it on it. And I changed the oil again just to, keep up on the maintenance and right back in business. And
well, now that I think about it, the one I have I think it's a Black Max. Is one I have, and I bought it, or I don't remember how I got it, but the motor was blown on it. So someone had burned up the motor on it. They'd used it so much. I replaced the motor on it and just kept it running. And at this point, the compressor, like I said, it'll runs probably longer than it should. And it made, I'm trying to justify getting a big 80-gallon Ingersoll Rand. I'm trying to justify that thing by having this one fail, but it won't die. It just keeps on running.
Yeah, they're tough.
Let's see. So Kev Chat saying there's a shop around the corner that sharpens those rotary files for $3. Wow. That's worth it. Those are really, usually people just toss them when they get, worn out. Okay. 2 cylinder head tools. So you're talking like serious machinery tools with that. Yeah, die grinder, 90 grinder, 90 die grinder, various terms you can use. Straight pneumatic grinder, there's another term. Where we go? Hold on. Again, these lots of comments coming in, and that's great. We've got 64 people on the chat right now, and lots of information being passed around. So Anthony Guido, he's an ILW mechanic on the LA waterfront. We get $1,000 tool voucher every something. Every something, pretty nice.
I think $1,000 tool voucher.
Yeah, I have an incredible Makita collection. Yeah, I'm sure you do. I wouldn't mind having a tool voucher like that. Man, this thing just keeps jumping to the bottom of the list. So I'm gonna have to skip ahead on some of these because it's just there's so many questions popping in that I can't keep up. Brendan says he drains his compressor every night after he's finished his jobs with it. That's a good thing to do. Kev Chat has a water valve on the bottom and drain it every week. Yep. Got to keep the water out. That's the most important thing. It's good to keep everything oiled, but that water gets causes all kinds of problems.
I tend to just leave the valve in the bottom of my compressor just cracked just the slightest bit. So, a little drip of water come out of it. And I rarely crawl under because it's hard to get to. But it's always just got kind of a little bit of a leak coming out of it.
Right.
It seems to work,
Yeah. Yeah. It's crawling under there and opening that valve up is no fun.
Yeah.
It never has been. Robert's saying he replaced the pump on his 60-gallon with a Harbor Freight pump. Works pretty well. Well, maybe I should just look into that, because I know this one's been abused for quite some time. Yeah, Leonard, you're right. Harbor Freight tools are great for the DIY home projects. Oh, there you go. I didn't think about that. BK Woods oscillating tool is great to cut windshield adhesive.
Yeah,
I'll give you a bell for that. I hadn't really thought about that concept. I know that I've seen what looks like a Sawzall, but it has a flat blade on the end of it that kind of like it doesn't oscillate back and forth, but it acts like a Sawzall, like a recip saw. And I know when we were in the body shop, that's what the glass guys would come in with a cordless recip with that blade on it and cut through all that urethane on the windshield. And they could get them out pretty quick with that tool. A lot better than what I grew up with. I can tell you, and I'll relate this because maybe this won't be my junkyard story, but maybe it will. Growing up in the 70s and having cars from the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, frequently would have somebody come up and ask for a windshield. Well, there was no easy way to get a windshield out back then. There was no, you could come up with, like I have one of those, now I have one of those long handles with a razor on the end of it. That would have been fantastic for cutting out windshields in the 70s and 80s. But what we used to do, and this was my dad's idea, he would burn tires, like in the furnace. In the wintertime, we'd burn tires for heat, and you'd have the wires inside the tires. It had I don't know if you want to call it the bands or whatever, but it would have all this wire inside the tires. Well, that stuff was pretty tough wire. So we used to take that wire and use it to cut out windshields. And so what we would do is we'd poke a hole through it was a softer sealant then. It wasn't like the urethane. You wouldn't do it with urethane, not today. Yeah. But on the old stuff, with that, the welting or whatever you want to call that material, the roll that you can buy still, we would poke through and then pull it up, and we would take vice grips. And so my brother one of us would be on the inside and one of us would be on the outside, and we'd cut back and forth, pulling on that thing, cutting that seal with that wire from these old tires, and eventually get to the point where you could, slowly push the windshield out, because, at the bottom it was always hard to get around, but you start getting that thing out. So we cut out many windshields at the junkyard with old wire from inside of tires.
Like recycling.
Yeah. Well, I've done it before. I've done it since that with some cars here, where I've used safety wire, stainless safety wire. I've done it. I had my son. In fact, I had my son Jake, who was on the live stream briefly a few weeks back when he got his car stuck in the yard. I had him helping me pull out a windshield out of the 68 Buick Riviera that I had at the time. And it had a perfect windshield in it. And the car was an AC car, so it had the green tint, and it had the big color, the shaded band at the top. And I was so happy that the car had a perfect windshield in it. And so I'm having Jake help me get this windshield out. And I told him, I said, you just hold on to it. We'll pull slowly and work our way around. So we did that. And then I told him we're going to lift it out. So I was on the driver's side, slowly pushing up on the glass. And I told him, I said, just very slowly push up on the glass. And he got excited and he wanted to get done. So he put some shoulder into it and snapped that windshield right in the middle. I was not happy. Perfect windshield. And it was, of course it's junk then. You're not going to do anything with it. But, it's hard to, you have to learn these things. And I learned at a young age about taking out windshields or back glass or whatever. You know, you had to take your time. So let's see. So let's see. GM guy is saying, get a developus desiccant snake on there.
I don't think I knew that.
Know. Huh? You know what that is?
No. I
don't know what that. I'd have to figure that out. Yes, give some more information on that. Can't just throw some words out there and leave it. Oh, so there was a question about Windsors or Cleveland engines, and there's some side conversation going on here as well, which is okay. That's good. I want people to help each other out and get answers out here. Here you go. BK Woods, I tried to pull a cyclone windshield with the wire trick. It was real slow going and hard. The oscillating with a thin, sharp blade had it done in 10 minutes. Yep. I believe you. I do. Oh, he's talking about, Leonard's talking about the engines. I guess, okay, so somebody had brought up a 396. I'm not familiar with it. Go back up a little further. I didn't know Ford had a 396. We had a Chevy 396. That's what I'm saying. We're getting all kinds of side conversation. Everyone gets confused on the 396, 400, and 402. Well, that's the Chevy stuff there. So, where are we at? Man, there's a lot of stuff going on. I can't keep up with all of them. Anyway, yeah, Black Max, Gary Dinnebeck. Gary Dinnebeck. I haven't seen that name before. Glad Gary's here. Yeah, Harbor Freight moving blankets. Easy to sit on when he's in the shop. Yeah. So I'm going to just go to the bottom of the list because it's so hard to keep up with. Okay, so now we have an answer from GM guys. A $30 hose with desiccant to dry air in a DIY situation from an air compressor. Okay, well, I'll give you a bell for that. I'll have to look that up, see if I can't find it. I have not tried one of those. Okay, so Robert is replying as well. The snake is a hose with a desiccant in it. I plan on getting the Harbor Freight refrigerated dryer. Yeah, Robert, if you want, you can get 2 of those and send me one. I'd be happy to have one of those dryers. I'll have to check into that because I've not heard of the living larger developus desiccant snake. I'll have to look it up because I have not researched that. I'm just you know, like you're saying, Harvey, you're talking about using the equipment that's from the old generation of sanding tools, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, for me getting out of the, I got out of the body shop in 13. I haven't really haven't tried to keep up with a bunch of the new stuff coming out. So I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. GT Wing, do you use polyester primer? I use Shopline from PPG. I don't know if it's considered a polyester or not. I don't think it is. It is, where am I at? I don't know what it's considered. It's 2K primer surfacer. So I don't believe it's a polyester. Polyester, that sounds more like the, what's the word I want to use? Feather fill type of primer when I think of that. So I don't think that qualifies the Shopline stuff as far as polyester.
I think some of that stuff's almost like a sprayable thin layer of body filler.
Right, that's what feather fill was. And then it later became, what's that?
I'm a little scared of that. I don't want to, I guess, get too many products on there and then have something crack later. So it makes me nervous spraying that on there and then, working with it.
Well, the old stuff was called feather fill. And then the next version had another name, and I can't think of it at the moment. And we tried it at the body shop, and mixed results. If it was on a panel that could flex, it would crack and come off. And so that was no good. We did use it on my dune buggy. When we painted the dune buggy, I covered it with a coat of that polyester, whatever. I can't think of the name right now, but and it worked fine. It worked fine. That dune buggy didn't flex. So I have not, or my primers are not polyester though. So we got Ted. So if you remember, Ted had a video, viewers project video. I think it was probably number 8 or something, maybe 7, to where he had the 68 fastback that he bought in boxes. So he's done an update video on that, and that was really nice to see his progress. Slick sand, that's it. Yep.
Slick sand. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like I said, we've had mixed results with that stuff, and I'm just I just stay away from it. Just me. And, you know, if it works, it works, but I get mixed results. So here we have Dave commenting on the engine sizes. Home and Mooney made a Ford 396 in the late 60s, fit NASCAR requirements. So there it is. And I'll give him a bell for that. Because, you know, they had the restrictions on even like the what is it, Trans Am racing, you know, STCA, whenever Ford was out there and they had the 302, then Chevy built the 302, had their own version of it. That was due to cubic inch restrictions. So that's how the ZZ or, you know, 302, whatever, how that all came about. But a lot of people don't realize that Chevy had a 302 as well. They don't realize that. Okay. 84 C130. Hey, I said something up there. Yeah. This has been scrolling pretty fast, and it's hard to keep up. Ford is building ventilators now. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. RMD, how about Studebakers? Studebaker trucks. Who likes them? I like them.
I do.
I like them a lot. I mean, I had one I was trying to build. It was a 46 model, 46, 47, the one with the kind of pointy nose on it. But at the time, it was not in the cards for me to build that truck, so I had to sell it. And that's just the way it is. So Robert saying high build primer. Yeah, that's a 2K that I use, Shopline brand. Oh, here we go. Kev Chat, we have 57 Studebaker Golden Hawk at the shop. Nice. Those are cool cars. I don't care who you are. If you can't look at to me, the 53 Studebaker is one of the most beautiful cars ever made. They hold records still at Bonneville for speed, you know, salt flats. I just love the looks of the 53 Commander, whatever you want to call them. But the 53 is just a beautiful car. 57 was very similar in the body, but of course the Hawk had fins, and then the hood had a bigger nose or a bigger opening in the front. Okay. Well, C130, C30. I don't know where your comment is. The truck was running through a ditch and hit a tree stump. So, yeah. Wish I had a better way to respond to this, but it's really hard to. So Leonard is saying if you can't find one, get a air dryer off I'm guessing he's saying a big rig maybe. I'm guessing that's what Leonard's trying to say is a big rig. I don't know. I know he's not trying to say big right. So here, okay, feather fill G2, it will grab moisture. So there's a comment about the feather fill. I guess you mean generation 2. I don't know if that's what you're referring to there. Yeah, DZ302. That's right. All right. I'll give you a bell for that. I said it wrong. I said ZZ. It was DZ. So you're right. Okay, so Tim, since you're using the optics body filler, good. That's good. It is good stuff. Oh, okay. So Brendan, maybe I should get Brendan on here so we can have our New Zealand influence. He finished up the rust repair on the right-hand side of his trailer project only left side onto the left side now. So if you haven't seen Brendan's YouTube channel, go check him out. He's building a trailer from and I don't know the terms, 54, I think it was Ford Catalina something. You know, they name them all kinds of crazy names over in New Zealand and Australia. You know, they'll have a name and another name and a model and a number and all kinds of stuff. But he's building a trailer out of a car, so it's kind of neat. Oh, now this I'm interested in. I'm building a 51 2R5 Studebaker truck. Good. I like to hear that. Harvey, do you ever run into Studebakers up in Jersey? You ever see anything up there?
They're not real common. It's kind of neat. In some of our local shows, I've seen a few really cool trucks. Almost never a car.
Really?
But the trucks
that's surprising, really. Yeah. Yeah. But it's not often you find them anymore. I've looked for several around here. I can't seem to find them. I look at Facebook Marketplace all the time, trying to find or see what kind of Studebakers are available. But let's see, Kev Chat. Oh yeah, Studebakers. It's hard to find parts for Studebakers. You were absolutely right. Yeah, Leonard's talking about a big rig having a dryer on it. Okay, 84 C30 truck was run into a ditch. Oh wow, Chevy actually made a 2000 Camaro Z28 concept with a 302 that they showed at SEMA that year. Oh.
Working on a tech question real quick. Hold on.
What are you doing, Harvey? I'll just pull Harvey off the stream for a minute. Looks like he's trying to rearrange something. Oh, okay. So Johnny Crash is saying Brown Auto Salvage in Sunset, Texas has a lot of Studebakers. They recently bought out another collection, a lot of trucks and parts. Well, that's good to know. Johnny, you get a bell for that. You're sharing information. And so, especially with Studebakers. I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for Studebakers. Maybe one day I'll find one. Maybe.
Hey, Barry,
oh, here we go. GT Wing, favorite glaze. Yep, I use U-Pole Dolphin glaze as well. So, how about you, Harvey? You use any kind of glaze putty?
No, I usually just tend to use the Rage Gold and kind of use it thin. Used to use with Evercoat, they had a glaze that we'd even mix with body filler for a final coat to go over things. But
yeah, they have there's Bondo honey, or I think it's a honey they call it, that you can put in with filler to thin it out. I'll say. So Brendan is saying his trailer is a 56 Ford Prefect. Let me see if whoops. Okay, so I'm getting feedback.
Sorry.
I'm getting some feedback from Harvey's feed. I just kind of muted him for a second. I'm going to see if I can't. Let me see. I'm going to send a invite to Brendan. See if he wants to join in. Since he's hanging out in New Zealand with nothing else to do. All right. So we got Harvey back, I think.
That's my garage door. Hang on a second.
What, is your son taking the Mustang out? What's he doing?
Actually, just pulled up with it a couple minutes ago. If you wanted to do a walk around.
Oh, with the white one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, one of the problems I have with this program the other day, somebody called me while we were talking, and then all of a sudden my audio goes real low.
Yeah,
And,
that's what I noticed when you were talking earlier. It went kind of low.
Yeah, I tried plugging a speaker in, pulled it back out, and then the audio went back to normal. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So DP's leaving. We'll see you, DP. Thank you for being here. I used use an Evercoat glaze in a funny pump bottle. I'm not familiar with that one. Leonard says he was watching YouTube last night and he was up in North Nevada and there's 2 Studebaker trucks in his yard. So I'm guessing somebody he's watching on YouTube has some trucks. Here's a comment. RMD, the Thunderbolt engine was GM 283 painted black. Oh, okay. You're talking about the Studebakers. Yes. Yeah. So in 65 and 6, they put Chevy engines in the Studebakers. So that's, they were kind of using up whatever they could to try to keep the company running for as long as they could. But obviously it didn't work out. So we have Jack. He has 3 project cars: 69 Mustang Vert, 68 Cougar, and XR7G, and 75 Bricklin. Now that's a name you don't hear very often. Is a Bricklin. Well, I'm glad you're watching, Jack. I really am. I like the Bricklin. I haven't seen one of those in a while. Man, that's an odd car. But you ever run into one of those, Harvey? A Bricklin?
I've seen maybe a handful or less. They're not real common in that area.
I don't think they're common anywhere.
Yeah.
If you run across one, you have to go, what?
I think we tend to see a lot of our cars are so rusty in my area, they disappear. Older cars, it's funny. You see a lot of, Mustangs and stuff, but there's some cars I see for the first time and they've been around for a while. I'm like, gosh, I've never seen one of them in my life, Yeah. The Brooklyns are one, maybe a couple, and I bet the rest of them they're not common in the first place, or the rest of them died of structural rust here on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that I've never seen one in person, but I've seen, on pictures and stuff, seen them. Really neat car, but just not something you run into very often. So even hearing somebody talk about having one is a surprise. Let's see. Leonard comments, have you ever heard of a Pope Hartford? I'm going to say no. I don't know what a Pope Hartford is, Leonard, but apparently that's not common in my area.
Not New Jersey either.
Yeah, I'd have to look that one up to figure that one out. But no, unfamiliar with that. I know the oddest car that I had, Guido's back. Okay, the oddest car that I remember at my dad's junkyard, the one that stands out. It was made, I believe, in England. It was a decent looking car. It was a 2-door. I don't know if it was a hardtop or a sedan or a coupe, but it was called a Goliath. Now, I've never seen another one since, and I don't know anything about the car really, but it was called a Goliath. That was the name on it, Goliath, and it was like a little, like a 2-door coupe, like a bigger version of an MG midget. It was kind of how they named it Goliath. I have no idea, but I remember the car. It was white, and I know it was a hardtop. Like I said, hardtop or sedan. I don't know if the doors had frames on them, or if it was a post. I don't remember. Mm-hmm. But I know that I opened up the hood and looked at it, and I think it had a 6-cylinder engine, and it was just nothing but parts. Like somebody had tried to fix it, and they took everything apart, and everything was just laying there in a pile under the hood. And we just went, okay. Because we knew nothing about it. Yeah, we just, it would have been a great car to maybe convert, put a small block something in it, but it was really just an odd car. Okay. Okay, so 84 Chevy's talking about his grandpa's old $2,000 Ram, 3500 dually Cummins diesel. Okay. So I know I'm getting snippets from him where his truck's been put in the ditch and front end damaged, and I really didn't know what he was talking about. But yep. Kev Chat, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm generally pretty low key. I don't get fired up for much. It would have to be something out of the ordinary to get me pretty upset. RMD, have you ever heard about Alfa Romeo GTV? Have not. I've obviously heard of Alfa Romeos, but I don't know what a GTV is. But I will say, now that we're talking oddball cars, if you ever looked up in the States we say Renault because that's how we are, but it's French, it's Renault. So Renault has been making cars since the probably 50s at least, maybe even earlier. I don't know for sure, but they imported a lot of cars in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and whatever. And I think sometime in the early 90s they quit bringing them over here when AMC went out of business. But if you ever look up, we had several of these my dad drove. It was called the Le Car. So it was a Renault R5, and it was a car that was about this long,
like a mini.
It was a hatchback, and it had a rubberized roof flap, like if it was a sunroof that you unlatch and then it would fold back. They were neat little cars. I mean, they did their job. They got you around, but they have a version. And if Tom's still on Paget, he can probably talk about it. They made a version called the Alpine. So if you looked up a Renault Alpine and saw what they could do with that car, your jaw would drop. It was an amazing supercar, basically built out of like a Renault Le Car. I mean, I think it was 4-wheel drive, had tires super wide on it, squat. It was an amazing car. And if you find one of those, that's a real hot rod for one of those little cars. So we got a couple responses here. Robert Adams, there was a Citron that was sitting behind a gas station here for decades that I always wanted for some reason. My dad had a fixation with Citrons as well. I don't understand. They're ugly. The calling card for the Citron was it had you could change the tire without a jack. So I don't know if anybody knows that or not, but it had an air system, like an air shock or something, that what you would do is you'd hit a button and it would press the shock to full extension, and then you would put a block underneath the frame and let the air out, and then the suspension would pull up and it would lift the flat tire off the ground. So then you would reverse that to change the tire. That was like, to me, that was the coolest thing, but it was also just an ugly car. I mean, there's no hiding that one. Let's see. So here we have a comment from Dave Conville. Pope Hartford was early auto company, active in racing in early 1910s, very rare, saw one at Hershey. All right. You get a bell for that, Dave. I've never heard of Pope, but obviously 1910, that's a little out of my time frame. I mean, I can go back to the Model T and stuff like that, but obviously a rare production vehicle if they didn't make it very far into the 20s, let's say, or at all. And then we got a comment from I'd Fix 3M. He's in Germany. So apparently the Goliath was a German car. I was guessing. I mean, but you get a bell for that. Of course, you have by default, because you live there. So that
home
you get
field
that.
advantage.
What's that?
Home field advantage, right?
Home field advantage, exactly. But yeah, that was it was just a really odd car, and I don't know. Maybe I need to look them up and see if they're still. I don't even know if that company still exists anymore. But it was really just a neat looking car. So there, Leonard's talking about the Pope Hartford, mostly made from oak, and we don't have to hawk our homes to get one. Oh, well, okay, I'd have to take your word for it. but I wouldn't mind seeing one. Guess I'd have to look it up. So here we have a late arrival, but that's okay because I invited him kind of late. We have Brendan in New Zealand.
Hey guys.
We say good day, mate. Right? Good day, mate.
Yeah.
Got work?
Yeah.
And it's Tuesday, so he already knows the lottery numbers, and we just have to get him to give us the information so we can hit the lotteries.
You'll get a bit of rain overnight.
What's that?
You're going to get a bit of rain tonight.
Yeah, very possible. We got a lot last night. So how are things in New Zealand?
Nothing much has changed, Barry. We're coming into our 3rd week of our lockdown. So, yeah, I don't think the 4-week lockdown is going to be enough. So we may go for another couple of weeks, maybe. But we'll find out next Monday. The government's coming up with a plan. So, yeah, just a waiting game.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's hitting all of us, no matter where we're at. We're seeing it more and more. I got friends who have relatives, and they're telling me that this one's unemployed now, this one's unemployed now, this one's unemployed now. So it's unfortunate that we're at this point, and we're kind of, dealing with it. But so you said you're working on your trailer, making progress on it.
Yeah, doing a bit more progress, but I'm out of panel steel, so unfortunately I can't do a lot more to it until everything reopens again. Just mainly the rear panel.
Right.
When I cut the seam off, there was quite a lot of rust just above the seam. So to do that job nicely, I'm just going to do a complete, probably about 1.5 inches above the seam, all the way down and roll the bottom of the pan just out of new steel. But I can't really do much with that until places open.
Okay.
I did also hear on the news this morning, France apparently has added an extra 4 weeks onto their lockdown. Oof. And apparently Burger King here in New Zealand's gone into receivership.
Really?
Yeah. So interesting times ahead.
Yes. It's interesting everywhere. I mean, nothing seems to be progressing very well, it seems. We hear, obviously, Harvey's in New Jersey, which is close to New York, in essence. So the stuff going on in New York is really crazy. And, we hear all the worst for sure. But then there's also stuff you hear that's very positive. And it's nice to hear that stuff as well. I know that, what's the guy? There's a guy that he's making videos on YouTube. He was on The Office. What's his name? John Krasinski, I think. And he's got a video channel he puts out. It's called Some Good News, or Some Good News, whatever. And it's pretty cool. He's doing broadcasts at his home and showing good news that's out there that we don't hear in the media. So I like to watch him because it's a positive feeling. It's like we have good things happening, but the media just wants to focus on all the bad stuff, And so that's
all you hear about, isn't it? It's all you hear about, isn't it, Barry? It's all you hear about is the bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't want to tell you how many people have recovered, or how many people are back home and all this stuff. It's always, and here's the thing, you probably I don't know about you, Brendan, but Harvey, you can probably chime in, but here in the States, if somebody dies and they can make any kind of connection to them having been near somebody who had coronavirus or any connection at all, they're going to say, well, they died from COVID-19.
Yeah. Whether
they had an underlying, health condition or something along those lines, they're going to tag it with COVID-19 and say that's what they died from. And so that's really misleading. It's really kind of crazy the way that is happening. But
we've had 5 casualties here in New Zealand due to it. Thankfully, all in their later stage of life. Thankfully, so late 70s, early 80s. I mean, it's still not a good thing, but we've had 5 so far. We've got 1,300 cases.
Right.
So in comparison, like Harvey, you're New Jersey, New York, the population in your, how would I put it, territory, would be more than what's in New Zealand in total. I think we've got 5 million here, I think. And that's in our whole country.
Right.
Yeah. So our numbers in comparison, I mean, in America, it's such a big country, you know, there's billions and billions of people. So the numbers, you know, with the number of casualties to recoveries is quadruple ours because of the size difference.
Right.
So when we talk about 5 casualties here to it, and in America, there's, I mean, thousands, you know, and it's just a sad thing that, mate, this has actually happened. Yeah, it's just a sad thing. And we're doing our best at the moment by doing social media,
right?
You know, what we're doing now to help prevent spreading it.
Sure. Sure.
So, you know, I mean, I'd hate to think what it's like over there for you guys. You know, I mean, yeah, such a big place to try and control it.
Right.
I mean, and here in New Zealand, we've got people that just are taking this as a joke. They're still going out. They're still trundling off to the beach to go and have a swim, or they're jumping. Like Friday last week we had the holiday. It was meant to be a holiday, public holiday, and we had campers getting in their caravans and camper vans and travelling 300 kilometres north from Christchurch and getting stopped and told to come back because they were treating it as a holiday when it's not. You know, I think we're still in a state of emergency in New Zealand. So people like me want to go back to work. We want this to be under control, and so we can go back to, say, level 2 or 3, and most of us can get back to work. But the problem is, with people not sticking within the rules, they'll just drag it on for longer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
what were you saying, Harvey?
I was going to say our area where I'm at, I'm fortunate in a way that my area is kind of rural. We have a lot of farms around, and it's more open. You go a couple hours north, and that's where, you know, you're closer to New York City. The population's, you know, double or triple up there what it is, you know, further south where I live. But the, you know, the numbers that they say are infected, it's staggering how many people have this. But, and, you know, me being an optimist, I look at it, I mean, that's horrible that all these people are infected. However, if they recover, I think they've got antibodies that hopefully they won't get it again, at least not for, last time I heard, I think it's probably good for at least a couple of years. They probably won't get a reoccurrence of it, if at all. So, you know, on the optimistic side, all those people that recover, they're good. And the percentage, I hate to, you know, say, I don't want to be in the small percentage or say it's terrible that those people are dying. But, you know, the numbers of infected, the number that die is still, I think it's what, 2 or 3% of the, yeah, no, it's low. And like I said, they don't mention the underlying conditions, which are all contributing to it a lot of times, but not necessarily. And it can be young or old. I've even heard blood types, you know, like different O-type blood might be better than A-type blood for recoveries or something, you know?
Yeah, you hear all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. But you know, now we have to all wear a mask if we're out in a store or, you know, picking something up even at the grocery store or whatever. But, you know, I'm okay with that if we have to. I'm kind of used to working in the body shop with a mask or a respirator and all that anyway. So
right.
It's okay. You know, we can do it for a while if we have to.
Right. Well, you know, and one of the facts that's being put out in the media is they say the United States now has more cases than Italy or Spain or China, whatever. They say we have more than anybody. Well, put it in perspective, though. We have how many 10 times more people. So when you say, well, they have more cases than anybody else, let's make it real and say, well, you know, if let's say Italy has 1 million people and America has 300 million people, your scale is off. You can't say they have more because you have more people, you know. But the media wants you to go, oh, no, we're all going to die, you know. They want to keep you scared and you know, in your homes, whatever. But anyway, it's just it's really tough. And you know, I know that for me, you know, I'm still working, but I'm considering taking off for 3 months because, you know, right now I'm not doing anything at work besides being there, punching a clock, showing up. And you know, with the way the states are, we can, you know, draw unemployment and that sort of thing. And I think there's here in the States anyway, Brendan, we have the last bill they passed, we would get a percentage from that each week based on our job, you know, whatever, what our income was. So if you had a standard,
your wage,
yes, your wages.
Yeah.
So if you had
Yeah.
we have unemployment compensation here in the States that if you were a full-time employee and you lost your job, you could file for unemployment and the state would give you a check every week. It might be $300-400, not enough. And then from this bill that they passed, from my understanding in certain industries, like I think in my case, they would give me an additional $600 a week from the government. So, you know, those numbers add up pretty quick whenever you're getting those every week, but I think there's a limit, you know, runs out after a certain period of time. I'd almost rather do that and help out my company survive than to be there and continue to do nothing, you know. So I'm considering it, but you know, I can't, not like I'm going to go fly around the country and do things. You know, we'll all be at home, you know, talking to the computer.
That's what's happening here is people having raging parties and having people come over and that. I mean, it's not what it's about. You know, it's it's a crisis situation, you know, and for a small country like ours, you know, little things affect our country very easily because we're so small.
Right. Well, I know for us, you know, I'm a new grandfather. You know, my grandson's not even a year old yet. And what's that?
Congratulations.
Oh yeah, thank you. But you know, it's hard to not see him. It's hard to not. So we've had we had our Easter dinner last night, and my kids were here, and you know, our grandson was here, but I won't hold him. I you know, my son and his wife, they held him the whole time. You know, I'm not interacting, and it's hard to not do, you know, to do that, you know, to stay away from situations. But it's also, you know, like you're saying, it's trying to do your part to not spread this stuff around. What else was there? I'm trying to go through some of the comments here. Reese Richter. Yeah. Oklahoma still has a shutdown for the year, even though some other states have. Yep. Yeah, we're all of our schools closed. And it's just tough. And you know, and we can only go by what we're told. That's the thing. And it's kind of hard to go out and do your own research. But anyway, you know, it's
what you were saying about your wage before, Barry. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The government subsidised our wages within New Zealand up to 80%. And I started my new job. I worked there I did a full week and then did 2 days, and I've been off since. So I've been off longer than I've actually been in my new job. But the employer I work for is brilliant. He said we only have to pay up to, the government subsidises up to 80% of the wage. But my employer has actually forked out the 100%. So they're paying 20% out of their business to top up our wage. So we're getting a full wage each week with it, you know, even though we're not at work.
Right.
But that could change after the 4 weeks, so that's good.
Sure.
So we still get our wage. But after the 4 weeks, it could drop back to 80%, which obviously you don't need as much when you're not driving to work and fuel and stuff like that. So Yeah,
Right.
It counter.
Now, the one advantage for me is my company has offered to pay all of my insurance premiums while I'm off. So it can, and my health insurance, medical, dental, vision, life insurance, all that stuff, they'll pay while I'm off. And they've offered that up to a year, which is, I mean, just thinking about being away from a job for a year because of all this. But that's why I'm considering taking that time off, because if I'm not having to pay that stuff, I can live on less of a paycheck. So that's kind of where I'm looking at it. But it's still up in the air. I'm going to wait to see how these next couple of weeks go and then make a decision from there. One other thing I was, going to mention, and this is not as important by any means, but, a lot of the stuff we're doing now is like if you go buy food somewhere, they'll bring it out to your car, or if you need something or whatever, they'll deliver it and that sort of thing. But recently, and again, this is not as important as everything else, but we have dogs, and we had 3 dogs, and recently we had one of our dogs that we had to put down. But to go to the vet, even the vet is like meeting you outside to take in your pet. And thankfully they understood our situation, and so we went in with our dog to have her put down. But to see people sitting in the parking lot waiting for their pet to come back out, it really it's crazy how much it's covering all this stuff. So
Do you think, Barry, once all this is settled down, do you think things will change around the world? Do you think people will treat things differently after this is over?
I hope so. I mean, in some ways, I hope so. I don't think we'll ever go back to the way we were. One of the things that I've been told or have heard people mention is the handshake may go away. Just because we as a society, at least here in the States and in most countries, we meet somebody, we put out a hand, we shake their hand, and next thing you know, you're doing whatever. And that may go away. It may just be something that you just nod or wave. I don't know. But I think that's gonna change. That's one thing I think it's gonna be different.
The new handshake here in New Zealand is the elbow bump. That's
right.
The new handshake.
Well, I actually saw a video where I think it was in maybe Japan or something, where they were sticking out their feet and just tapping their feet, like sticking, right foot to right foot, and then I saw somebody posted something on Facebook that this will be the new handshake, with the Vulcan Star Trek, Spock, it'll be your new handshake. But it's very well that it may come to that. I don't know why. It's just, as a society, even now, like for me, I would typically do a fist bump anymore. I mean, I've done it for several years now. If I go to the workout at the gym or something and I'm talking to somebody, I might do a fist bump, and that's it. So I think the traditional handshake is going to go away, honestly. But beyond that, it's hard to say what else is going to be affected, over time. Because it's definitely changing the world. We'll say that. What do you think? What do you think, Harvey?
I think our world's going to be a different place. It's funny. I've seen things now that I've never seen in in all my years on this earth. It's kind of scary. Last weekend, we did somebody in my township, anonymous company donated, I think 10,000, I think it was 10,000 masks that you can wear, kind of like sort of disposable ones, not real great quality, but since it's mandatory that everybody wear one when they go to a store and they're almost unobtainable, they donated these. And then I'm part of our fire department. We gave them out for 3 hours on Friday and 3 hours on Saturday. And people were lined up for probably over a mile down the road in 2 lanes coming in steady and straight the whole time, picking them up. And,
Wow.
and you know, you see the people in the food lines picking up food. I mean, they're not making up the food pantries and giving the food away because things are going well. So, you know, the recovery from this, I think, is going to be long, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to. But it's going to be a different world. And I'll tell you something else. I mean, I always thought of myself as kind of a minimalist anyway. I don't need a lot of fancy things to be happy, but it makes you appreciate just if you've got food on your table, you know, and all your family members and your immediate family are healthy and with you. That's saying something today. It makes you realize how important that is.
Yeah. And it's something we take for granted, obviously, you know, just our general health overall. And we all know typically in America, land of plenty, you know, people seem to have food. You have a certain group of people who are athletic and take care of themselves and do that thing like religiously. And you have people in the middle who are just kind of, I'm happy to be alive. And then you have some people who don't take care of themselves at all, you know, and, you know, unfortunately, a lot of those people are the ones suffering in this instance. You know, they have a compromised immune system, or they have some other issues going on. And, you know, it's just kind of tough. I've got a super chat. He's asking a question. That's pretty good. We're gonna let Stacy ask a question. So we've got, what package would you go with for a suspension front end, back end stock replacement for a '69 Cougar? Would be the same as a '69 Mustang, I presume. Now that's a good question. It depends on what you're putting in a car. You know, if you're building something high power, you're going to want to go back. With me, I'd put a Ford 9-inch in it for sure. We go suspension front end, back end stock replacement, and it depends on what you're going to use the car for, because you can have a stock suspension if you're just doing a simple driver, but if you want something that's going to perform, you know, you can put in a 4-link. There's variables out there, and so like there's some responses coming in. Robert's pointing out that he doesn't like the stock front suspension. So that's a good point. And I know the Cougar is pretty much the same thing, you know, Mustang wise. And if I were given a choice, I would not use the stock setup from the Mustang or the Cougar for the front. Either go with the Mustang 2 modification, or there's different suspension systems that use kind of like a strut setup, where you keep the lower control arm and you can add an upper system, which is a lot better. So as far as the rear, there's lots of variables out there for that question. Now, I don't know, and I might need some more information from what you're asking, Stace, because again, what kind of engine are you putting in this car? You know, what kind of horsepower? What are your goals? You have to think about those kind of questions. You know, if you're doing some sort of street rod, you know, or street type car where you're going to do some performance stuff with it, you got to consider those options as well, because everything counts. So okay. So Stacy's putting a stock 351 Windsor. So that's not going to be a high power engine. So you're not too worried about doing performance on that one. Stock replacement. I'm assuming you're talking about that 351. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of. I mean, you could do a coilover setup in the back. You know, there's kits available where you can buy a coilover setup. Now, I don't know. I'm sure they make them for Cougars, but I haven't researched the Cougar. If anybody else has any insight on the Cougar stuff, by all means. Here's a good response. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I might do things a little different on my car if I did it again. But when I put my Mustang together, it seemed to me one of the winning combinations might be, if you wanted to, you know, not go too radical, I kind of like the Shelby drop to change the geometry a little bit
Yes.
and make it handle a little better. You know, and
Right.
that doesn't cost hardly anything. You're just really just moving something down a little bit and drilling a couple holes and welding a few up. To me, the weak link in those cars, or the thing that I can't believe they actually produced it, is the power steering system in them. You know, with the, I guess, the slave cylinder, the diverter valve, and all like that. I mean, it seems to work okay, but it's got hoses that drag back and forth every time you turn the car. Those hoses are moving. It just seems like something that's kind of a wear item.
Right.
I like that Borgeson box, that because one thing I think GM did right with the Camaros that I like better than the Mustangs was I like the GM power steering boxes where the box is fixed, the hoses go to it, and I kind of like that. So like a Borgeson box, stock pieces, and then a Shelby drop. To me, that seems like a pretty mild way to have a really nice steering car when you're done. That's my take on it, you know.
Yeah.
And I like Moog suspension parts for like ball joints and tie rod ends and things. A lot of times the white boxes are the one where you get a whole package for like, you know, $200 for, you know, 150 bucks. And then, you know, the parts wear out quick or they're just not as strong. And, you know, you don't want your classic car you put all that work into to fail and crash or, you know, go off the road because some, you know, low dollar suspension part broke.
Right. Very true.
Yeah.
Robert is commenting that the CPP front suspension products uses a full lower control arm and rids it of the strut rod. So that's something to consider as well. I mean, there's plenty of things you can do that, like Harvey says, a simple Shelby drop where you lower the upper control arms 1 inch is going to help with handling. A lot of people are commenting, you know, upgrade your braking system, you know, put in good brakes. That'll help a lot. Sway bars. Jordan's pointing out, put on sway bars. So if you don't have it, that's one thing to look at too. You know, there's all kinds of different ways to approach it. But if you're going with a stock engine, you really don't want to get carried away with putting in a super high dollar suspension system. Just my opinion. You can do some stuff with simple mods and just save yourself the trouble. You know, just the way I look at it. Yeah, Johnny Crash has mentioned that Moog is good for stock replacement stuff. Yep. So, and Stace gets a thanking Robert for the CPP stuff. So, I hope that answers your question, Stace. I don't know if that was exactly what you were looking for, but trying to give you some insight into what you're asking. But good question, though. Good question. As Johnny Crash points out, you can get Moog parts from Rock Auto. In fact, that's where I got mine for Jade, the 68.
Where I got mine.
All
Too.
that stuff was bought Rock Auto, all Moog. So no complaints. There you go, Kev. Rock Auto is great. And Guido's back. Bob Shoemaker says it's much better out there than Rock Auto and with free shipping. So I don't know if he's referring to a different company, but so anyway. All right, so Stace got an answer. Yeah, I'm glad. You know, I don't know if any of you have paid attention to what he's saying here, but he says I helped him fabricate an accelerator mount for my car. That video, I've talked about it before. I did a video back in probably maybe 2012, something like that, where I put an Edelbrock carburetor on a 70 Mustang that we were building at the body shop. And because it was originally, I believe, a 2-barrel car, and we converted it to a 4-barrel, you can't just do that. It's just Ford makes things complicated. And so I was trying to use the kit that was provided by the owner, you know, these different things you could add on, and nothing was working. So I fabricated a bracket that was probably, I don't know if you can see, probably about 9, 10 inches long out of some scrap metal, basically, that mounted to the back of the carburetor and pushed the throttle linkage outboard above the valve cover. And it worked like a charm. It was fantastic. And I showed it in the video and all this stuff. And then I realized later on that people wanted me to build those. They were like, "Do you sell these? I want one. How do I get one?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I just made this to, you know." It was one of those things. In the conversation I've had, I don't know if it was with you earlier, Harvey, in a week when we talked, that, or somebody else that I mentioned, I kind of assess and do things on the fly. I don't really sit there and stew over it a whole lot. Like when I built that bracket, it was just like, oh, I need something to do this. Boom, boom, boom. I did it. And then I moved on. And that thing has been such a, the response on that thing has been crazy. They're like, where can I buy one of these? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, I'm surprised Edelbrock hasn't made one, looking at my video and saying, here, we made this. Maybe they think they would have a copyright issue or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I should have done something along that.
I think little things like that adds to the fun of your build, you know, fabricating little things that you don't realize need to be done, you know, throttle linkages, pedal brackets and stuff like that when you're doing little modifications. I think that's the fun part of a build.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite parts about building a car is coming up with little innovations like that, you know, solve a problem and it actually works. That's like, you know, home run, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. Apparently, so Stace is saying that original Fomaco bracket is worth $150. The one, I don't even know what happened to the bracket that I had. But it was a two-barrel deal. You know, it was funny when you talk about the idea of fabricating something or making, you know, something specific to the vehicle. I've had people ask me before about, where's it at? I don't know if I'm pointing right. That Chevy truck over there on the 70 Chevy that I showed, that red truck. When I built that truck or rebuilt that truck, it had an MSD ignition box on it, you know, that you see in a lot of vehicles. They had that MSD box. And I didn't like the way it was on the truck because it was on the inner wheel well, which is a curve. And if you just bolt that thing on, it looks terrible. It's just sitting out there in space. And so I got thinking about it. I just took some scrap metal that I had, some sheet metal, and I created a box that it would fit the dimensions of the MSD box. And then I trimmed it to where it fit the radius of the wheelhouse inner. And I also set it up so it was perfectly level. So not only did, you know, it had a taper that was bigger on one side than the other so that it would fit on the wheelhouse. And then I put tabs on the inside. I welded in little tabs so that I could drill holes from the bottom side of the wheelhouse and bolt that thing on, and it looked like it was just sitting there. And I had so many people walk by and they're like, where did you buy that? How did you get that? Where did that come from? And I said, I made it. And I said, well, how is it staying on the fender? And I said, magic. But it was just one of those things, you know, where you kind of envision it and then build it, you know. So now we're getting all kinds of comments. Yeah, Robert Adams talking about, this is back to Stace, power steering box. I think he's talking to Stace. Anyway, so I was talking about adding the electric power steering mod. Leonard was talking about the blue Mustang was a great build. Yep. And Jordan is commenting to Stace as well. Moog is nice and an upgraded stock replacement, usually thicker, and all their stuff with serviceable grease fittings. Very happy with the suspension command R68. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Brendan, do you get Moog parts over in New Zealand?
Oh, I've heard of it. I've heard of that brand.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what's available to you over there as far as branding.
When it comes to ball joints and stuff like that, like the brands for like my Ford Fairlane, I did a couple of bottom ball joints in that, and the brand is called Camelot or something. So I think they're just a Chinese brand. They're cheap, but I've never had any problems with them. Never had them pack up on me or anything. So yeah, but I tend to add a grease nipple myself because a lot of them come pre-packed. but I end up just putting a wee hole and putting a grease nipple and just, pump them full of grease, because the grease dries out in the end, and that's what really makes them pack up,
Sure.
ball joint and stuff like that. Yeah. So
Here's another comment from David and Cheryl. A larger sway bar would help. Summit Racing might have something you might want to look into, Stace. So there's a sway bar idea. Okay, so Stace has already upgraded or replaced all the power steering components. That's good. Yep.
cool.
Our white Mustang, we have our 68 is a factory 302 4-barrel car. And it came with the same size sway bar as my 6-cylinder Mustang did, like a pencil thin sway bar.
Yeah.
And it used to dive into the corners, and even had problems with the front tires rubbing the fenders if you cornered too hard with it. And my son Jordan picked up I think it was an 1 1/8 sway bar at a swap meet. It was like a $25 sway bar, And
Right.
I don't even know what it was on, a big block car or what, but and we switched that over, like you said, put bushings on it with grease fittings on them, and that was the single biggest improvement I think we ever did to a car. It took about 45 minutes to put on, and it hasn't rubbed the tire since. It goes around the corners, a lot flatter. Doesn't feel like quite as much of a wallowing old 60s car, as a lot of them do. So yeah, the decent sized sway bar is a really good improvement for not a whole lot of investment.
Well, and that's a good point, because the Cougar is going to be a bigger, heavier car. We know that. It's longer, has a longer wheelbase, so it's a heavier car. So I would definitely look into doing that, Stace, is at least getting sway bar upgrades and looking. I don't know how well it works in the rear, and that, because it's going to be a leaf spring car. So I don't know the sway bar is really going to make much of a difference in the rear, so I'm not sure what you can do to help out the rear. I don't know if you could add a pan hard bar, if that would help at all, help control the body roll a little bit, but that may be, and I know they sell pan hard bars you can bolt on. I've seen that, and you bolt it onto the housing and find a point on the chassis where you can mount the thing. So that may be an option too, to look into pan hard bar. And here's some other good points. Let's see. Okay. Polyurethane bushings. That's a good point. Stiffen up the bushings. That'll help with handling, definitely. Let's see. There we go. So good. I love this guy's name. I love his name. Goodmunder Eiffels. I just love that name. The stock sway bar on his Mustang is 11/16. It came with a 289 and 3-speed manual. So, and that's a pretty small sway bar, in the grand scheme of things. I had one I used to keep in the back of my shop. It was off of a Monte Carlo SS. It was like an 86 Monte Carlo SS. That sway bar was like 1.25 inches. It was the biggest, fattest sway bar I've ever seen on a car. And I kept it hoping that I would have a reason to have it. And then I finally got rid of it because it's like, what am I going to do with it? I have nowhere to put this thing. Okay. Yeah. Kev Chad is talking about that panhard bar having U-bolts on it. So torque arms. You say the torque arms for the Mustangs. I'm not sure if they're available for the Cougars or not. Oh, there you go, Brendan. There's a.
Yep, we do. Yep.
The oddball.
You can use 302 Cleveland heads on a 351 as a quick upgrade. You can get open, closed heads. Leonard knows a lot about them as well. The 302s, they come out in the late 70s. The last 302 Cleveland was 1984. And then when the Ford V8 in Australia came back, and also in New Zealand, was 1991, and they started with the 302 Windsor.
There you go. CPP will have a good sway bar for that Cougar. So there's a good answer. Here's a question from Guido. Have you used a paint called Steal It? Harvey, you heard of that?
No, I don't think it's a DuPont or PPG products that I'm used to, so I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not heard of that, Guido. Sorry. So you might have to give us some insight as to what that is. So there you go, Robert. I don't know where I got that. If that sway bar was original to the car, but I know that sway bar was huge. That was on that that I got on that Monty SS.
I had an 87 GTA, Pontiac Trans Am GTA.
Yeah.
And I think that had 1.25 sway bars. That was back, we used to joke around and say GM made them like telephone poles. I mean, they were gigantic sway bars on those cars, but man, they could handle good, you know?
Yeah.
They were cool.
Oh, so Stacy's asking about, he's talking about, I guess he's talking about the import brace. I'm assuming. Import support brackets on the 69 Mustang, is that the same as the import support brackets? Somebody that mentioned earlier the torque arm bars. Robert had mentioned torque arm bars. I don't think that's what we're referring to there, Stace. I don't think that's what we're looking at. Okay,
That is
so
another good piece. That one piece export brace is a nice way to stiffen up the front end of a Mustang if it's got the original 2 pieces on there.
right. I don't know if they made that for the Cougar though. I don't think that was an option.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, the dimension might be different between the shock towers. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, the Cougar, I know that the mid body is longer, but I don't know if everything else is compatible. I don't know if it's just its own thing. So Guido's talking about this paint has stainless steel bits in it for the. I'll have to look that up. Steal it. Okay, you get a bell.
New product.
We'll have to go with that. Oh, here we go. So Stace, there's a good West Coast Cougar. Oh, so he says he bought the Cougar from. I bought a Cougar. Oh, so he's already familiar with West Coast Cougar. Okay.
I like his YouTube channel too.
Okay. I have not seen his channel, so.
Yeah.
Kev Chat, he's only Southern Poly and PBG DBC base. Okay. There's a question for Brendan, I guess.
Yes, there was, and that is the AU of 99 through to 2002 was a brand of the Ford Falcon. The model was an AU, and it was a TE50 or a TS50, and they were the 302 with the 347 stroker kit from factory. They were 250 kilowatts out of the bat, and very expensive car to buy now, about 40, maybe 50 grand for a good one with low Ks now. Good cars. Wow. And they also made a Ute as well, and they called the Ute the P250, and that had the 347 stroker in it.
So it had a 347 stroker from the factory.
Yes.
Wow.
I apologize, from the Tickford factory. So it was based on a Ford Falcon or a Ford Fairmont, but then it was enhanced by a company called Tickford, who had been around since the early 90s.
Okay. So it was like a Shelby mod. It was like something Shelby would do here.
It's basically like a Shelby mod in the US. Yeah.
Okay.
Good car. Plenty of power.
So 84 Chevy's asked me about the Franken truck. It's doing good. I mean, I don't drive it very often. I like to drive it and tow with it and haul stuff for home repairs and junk and whatever. But truck's running good. I still need to do more to it. It's not completely finished, but I don't know if it ever will be. Okay, so Robert has a lot of info on the GMG bodies. That's good to know. Let's see. RMD's asking, Stace Cougar 71, you mean the same of 69. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. He's saying it's the same 69, 71. Yeah. So that when you said kilowatt, that's horsepower. We have to have the conversion there.
Yeah, sorry.
Because I've never heard of a car producing kilowatt. I mean, it's just an odd phrasing, but I guess it makes sense. But I don't know how to make that click in my head.
It's the same when you were talking about the 11/16 sway bar. Well, 11/16 to me is a socket. We
Yes.
use millimeters here, so
Right.
So 11/16 would be about a 17 or an 18 millimeter diameter in our
Right.
terms. So over here we talk in millimeters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you start
It's-
measuring stuff in 3/4 of an inch and an inch and 7/8 or whatever, I'm sort of like, oh, I'm lost here.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, talking about temperatures, we're always in the US, it's always Fahrenheit. In most of the world, it's Celsius. And, but we're, and here's the thing. For years and years and years, and I think it's still the standard in the aircraft industry, everything is in inches. There is no millimeter. Everything. It doesn't matter what country it's in inches. And that's just a standard. It's always been there. And I think the idea is that if you need to work on it, you can, cross over tools really fast. But recently I've done work on Rolls-Royce products. And for my job, which I heat treat parts, the repair calls out Celsius. It's in the manual. So we have to, and this is one of those dumb things that I have in my head, lots of information. But I know Celsius is times 1.8 plus 32. So I often do the math in my head real fast to know what the conversion is to Fahrenheit. But it's pretty important, when you're doing a heat treat on a part, an engine part, you have to have the right temperatures. And so I'm surprised that the manuals, though they may have a reference that says Celsius and then a quick follow up with a Fahrenheit as well, but just one of those things. But we're pretty stubborn. Yeah, Leonard points out almost equal horsepower to cubic inches for the 347 stroker. Kev Chat's got a 29 Ford in shop. It has a Mercury flathead in it. That's a rare item.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Would you watch me build my Franken truck up to be better? I'm not sure what you're asking, Chev. So I have to kind of
watch. Put some videos on YouTube. Videos up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has a YouTube channel. I could watch it. Yes, I have heard of Smokey Yunick. Who has not heard of Smokey Yunick? Brendan, have you heard of Smokey Yunick?
No.
Oh, how about you, Harvey?
I confess no. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you need to do some research. You need to look up Smokey Yunick. Amazing gentleman who is a racing legend. And Brendan, look him up. Smokey Yunick. I read a book. His book is called The Best Damn Garage in Town. And he's long passed. He was an aviation mechanic. He was in World War II, I believe, I think he was in World War II, maybe Korean War. I think. I can't remember exact facts. But the guy he knew how to build cars. So you need to look him up. That's a good, I'll give Kev a bell for bringing up Smokey Yunick. He's well known in the racing world, and he was well known for cheating. He would bend the rules as far as he could. And one of the coolest things he ever did that is still debatable in the racing world was he brought a car to, I believe it was a NASCAR event, and I think it was a 67 Chevelle, 66 or 67 Chevelle. I don't remember which. Brought it to the NASCAR event, and he went out, or the driver went out, and let's just say, I don't remember the exact numbers, but let's say the top qualifying speed was like 150 miles an hour at this track. His car was doing like 170 miles an hour. And they said, something's not right. You know, what are you doing that's not right? And so they could not find anything particularly wrong or whatever with the car. And then they started looking at the car closer, and they said, wait a minute, this car is not the same size as all the other cars. And so the rumor was that he built, and I have to use a scale here, Brendan, he built a 7/8 scale Chevelle. So it wasn't 1-to-1, it was 7/8 the size of an original Chevelle. And not only that, but they suspected that he built two of them, and that the second one was built as a regular car, a street-worthy car that he brought to the event so that he could say, look, it's the same as that one in the parking lot. And they looked at it and says, no, you got to go. Take your car, leave, don't come back. But that's a rumor that he built a 7/8 scale Chevelle. But he did a lot of things with SCCA, Trans Am Racing. You just look him up. He's an amazing individual who knew how to, he was an engineer, mechanic, just amazing. So Smokey Yunick, one of my all-time favorite people on the planet. So you have to check it out. Yeah, he's a lot of people commenting about the stuff he's done. Okay, so I have to check out 84 Chev channel. I'll check it out. 84 Chev C30. I'll look into it and see what's going on with that. Yeah. So Brian's talking about stock suspension is adequate until all the salt rusted out and he ended up losing a front wheel. Yeah, Smokey Yunick did have his hand in the Pontiac Fiero. He did all kinds of crazy stuff. I will say one of the coolest things that Smokey Yunick ever did in one of the SPCA racing events, you know, those cars, I think it was a Camaro he was running, and he worked on Fords and Camaros. He had his hands in everything. But one of the coolest things he did was he built a car that when it was racing, the brakes would wear out. Okay. So they were designed, you know, the brakes just wouldn't hold up to all the stress of the race. So at a pit stop, they would have to pull the wheel, pull the brake pads out, put in new brake pads, put the wheel back on, and then, you know, continue racing. And they also consumed lots of oil. They could not keep enough oil in the cars because they just ate it up. So what he did, being in the aircraft industry, he created a reverse diaphragm system to where when they pulled in to put the car up to pull the brakes out, he could put a vacuum on the brake system and actually pull the calipers back to take the tension off of the pads. Okay, retract them all the way in, so the guys could just pull the pads, pop in new ones, and it would go back to normal, right? So they didn't have to pry on anything. And then the other thing was, inside the car, he could see how much oil. He had some sort of a gauge system set up so he knew how much oil was in the car. They could pass the driver a can of oil, and he could add oil from inside the car, so they never had to open a hood. So it was all these time things that he could come up with. He did a variation of. He was the first one to smooth the underside of a car. You know, everybody talks about the aerodynamics on top. You don't think about the turbulence underneath. He did stuff where he flattened out the control arms. He took away all the blunt edges underneath the car. I mean, he was just an amazing guy. He knew how to make stuff fly, and he got kicked out of a lot of races because of that.
You never see anything like that anymore with racing because it's all done on computer now, isn't it? The cars, the engines are tuned on computer. You just sit there and push buttons, and it does everything that you want it to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Gone are the fun times of actually thinking about going faster and how am I going to make this car go faster and stuff like that. It's gone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's at one of the events he was getting better fuel mileage. His car was getting better fuel mileage than anybody else. And they brought him in to have him checked. And they said, we know something's not right. So they pulled his gas tank and discovered gas tank was the right size. Everything else was right. He said, okay. He got in the car and he drove away with no gas tank. And they said, get out, just leave. Because he had put fuel in the roll cage and made it hold like 5 extra gallons of gas. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Just a really neat guy. One of those legends that you just like, kind of like Carroll Shelby, you know, had vision and knew how to do some crazy stuff.
Speaking of roll cages like that, there is some of our modified saloons here at Speedway, because I do get involved with Speedway. I used to race Speedway, and a lot of them have mid-mounted engines. So they have the radiator maybe at the front or at the back sort of exposed from the trunk lid, but they actually use part of the roll cage to carry the water through to like the engine or back to the radiator. So you had hoses at each end and they used the roll cage to transfer the water.
Right.
So same sort of thing like you were saying with the fuel in the roll cage.
Yeah.
Using water. Yeah. So
I think this question is, why did Mustangs, it says specialties, but I think he means Mustangs Unlimited. And from what I gather of information I've received, the guy that owned Mustangs Unlimited was just tired of it, tired of dealing with it. And rather than sell the business, he decided to shut it down while it still had a decent name. He didn't want to sell the name, didn't want to sell the nothing. So he just shut it down and let it die, from what I understand, which is unfortunate because I liked having them here. Yep. RMD, yes, please. More subscribers. Be great.
Every time I check, it's going up. It's at 38,200 now, I think, or 38.
It's something like that. Yeah.
38,200 or something, Barry? Yeah.
It's I can tell you here real quick. Yeah, it's at 38,209.
I think the last live stream you're at 37,900.
Yeah. I mean, it's climbing.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
it is. It's climbing, and it's fantastic. And not that I count on revenue from YouTube. I've never made that a priority. I like to, it's good to make money off the ads and whatever, all that stuff, but I've never made that the reason for what I'm doing. I never consider that as my, as something I have to survive, let's say. So the difficulty with this whole virus and shutting down all this stuff is the revenue now for my YouTube channel is at half of where it was about a month ago, which is just the way it is, because if people aren't buying things, advertisers aren't spending the money. They're not going to throw the money on stuff. So it's disappointing, but it's just a fact of it. And again, I've never tried to put myself in a position where I have to have an income to survive off of YouTube. I would like to at some point, might be years now before I get to that point where I could retire and do this as a full-time thing. But at this point, I just have to roll with the punches like everybody else. And
people do it on YouTube though, don't they, Barry? There are people doing videos that is their income.
There's people that make millions of dollars off of YouTube.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean millions. But I'm not that guy. Yeah. Yep. That's kind of how it works. Yeah. Yeah. I need to check out 84C30. Check out his channel. See what he's doing. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
That's another thing that my Frankentruck videos have gotten. They're like 8 of my top 10 videos right now. So it's still doing that. But unfortunately, what I don't, because a lot of those videos are only like 5 minutes long, they're of little value to advertisers. They don't want to spend money on it. So it's just the way it is. But I've thought about pulling all of those videos off and compiling them into maybe two long videos, but I have to find them. I don't know where they're at. You know, I saved them on a computer, but that was like 7 years ago. I don't know which computer they're on, but I have thought about doing that, pulling those off and compiling, you know, making one bigger video to make it better.
So Barry, what made you decide to start doing videos on YouTube?
Well, initially, when we had the body shop, I was trying to use it as a tool to promote our work. And if you go back to my videos in 2009, 10, 11, those videos are all focused on cars. Well, mostly all focused on cars at the body shop. Yeah. So the idea was, if we could show people what we can do and also have the people who own the car see the work being done to it, then we add value to that. And so that was the intent, was to try to get, you know, more business generated from that thing. And it was doing okay. You know, it was getting us some people showing interest and contacting us. But eventually, you know, the body shop was just not doing well, or not well enough. And so when I left the shop, that's when I decided, well, I'm just going to take it, because actually it wasn't always called Joe Daddy's Garage. If you go back to, it's not going to tell you, but the previous name was Midway Restorations. That's what I had it as. And because our business was Midway Collision. And so I was trying to branch it into Midway Restorations. And so when it all failed, I said, well, I'm done with that. I'm going to take it over and give it my own name and just do my stuff at the house. So that's how that all rolled together.
And here we are chatting live from all around the world.
From all around the world, you know.
I love it.
Yeah. So
cool. That's awesome.
I got a super chat from Stace. That was nice. You know, this is the first time, honestly, I've been doing these live feeds, and I didn't even know this thing called super chat. And this is new to me as well. But basically, it's somebody makes a donation and it highlights their comment. It puts them to the top of the list or whatever. So I appreciate Stace doing that, because I've never tried it and not seen it actually happen. But I'm very happy that he participated and made that happen.
I looked into live chats also, but you have to have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers before they give you that option.
Really? No,
Yeah.
but that's only. But you know, you here. I have a friend who has RC Guy Garage. He couldn't do it on his cell phone, but he could do it on a laptop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the restriction. You have to have 1,000 to use a cell phone. So you may want to look into trying a laptop.
I better make another 700 false accounts so I can subscribe to myself.
Well, I can tell you right now, you know, there's people here that watch. Obviously, we've had lots of people on here. If you can, go to Brendan's channel.
On my last video, Barry, you know, I put up a video Saturday night, and I'm getting, it's nothing, but I like to, I mention your channel and stuff, because with having people on your channel commenting and obviously talking, and they've got videos, it sort of helps them. And I've had a few comments from people that comment on your live stream come onto my channel and like videos and comment, which is great. It's great. Yeah. I don't ask for it, but it's awesome, Well,
and if we can all help each other out and get, make things grow and get connected. So by all means, go to Brendan 351C's channel and check him out. You might find some interesting things there. I know that was a great, when you did that walk around last week with showing us your planner and the different cars and stuff. That was pretty cool.
I love that. That was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do another video of a walk around soon. I mean, obviously it's not big build stuff like what a lot of you guys and the subscribers do. It's more how did I put it in my last video? Down to earth stuff, you know, some basic stuff. I am considering doing a video on my Ford custom line. I've got some plans for that. I've been talking with my partner about that, and we do have some plans. So that could be a possibility down the track as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, and it doesn't always have to be the stuff that I do. You know, I focus on doing repairs and teaching and showing and, you know, trying to get all that stuff out.
Barry's frozen.
Yeah. Funny thing is, it looks like I still move.
Yeah, I still move. You're moving. Barry's not.
Well, maybe they got slower internet in Georgia or something like that. But anyway, I did enjoy your walk around last week. That was pretty cool, Brandon.
Oh, were you watching that, Harvey?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm usually
It's
tuned in
different.
just about every Monday if I have if I'm not out doing something else. And lately, it hasn't really been a problem.
The reason why I'm on this so much at the moment is obviously because we're not at work. And when I am at work, I can sort of squeeze on for about 30 minutes at about 12:30 for while it's my lunch break. But otherwise, I'm at work and I miss it. So that's why I'm really enjoying at the moment while we're having our lockdown that I get to come on here. And I think Barry enjoys it and a lot of guys over there because, I mean, things are different here to what it is for you guys. And yeah, and I just enjoy it and people's comments and stuff like that. I enjoy it.
It is pretty cool. You know, I've seen you know, things where you are. Like I said, things are different, but it's funny. We all do the same work. You know, welding's welding, and you know, most of the suppliers are the same that we use. I watched some. I guess there's a guy I watched, Trev's blog. He's in the UK. Does a lot of, you know, welding and you know, high-end restorations, but also, did you see the Bedford van that he was restoring on that channel?
Yep.
Really neat stuff. Love to watch his stuff too, you know. And it's neat, you know, all the way in the UK too. He talks about the same problems and the same things we have here.
Yep. Just different cars, different variety,
yeah,
isn't it? You know, but it's all the same principle.
Yep, exactly. So and it's funny, a lot of us all, I guess we have our you know, the same pastime. You know, you get a little free time, you're out working on your cars and your projects and, you know, fabricating and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, 20 years ago, I've actually worked in a few panel shops. I was doing chassis repairs, restoration work, stuff like that. Sort of 2005, I finished up and I went and worked for myself. I worked for myself for about, probably 9 years. And I really enjoyed it. And I was doing rust work, car wrecking, basically I just concentrated on the Ford Falcon of the 60s through to the early 80s, which is an Australian car, and did very well out of it. But things change. You get a little bit older. The older car market of that era, the cars dry up. You know, the demand for the car. People have restored their cars, so they're not looking for parts anymore because they're all restored, you know. So ended up getting full-time work again, just as I do a lot of suspension and brake work. So automotive technician. And I've done it ever since. And with having a daughter and now I own my own house and have a mortgage, you know, you've got to have that guaranteed income.
Yeah.
Which is what we've got.
Yeah, I worked as a mechanic first, right out of high school, and for a couple years in this shop. The building got sold that they were renting, and you know, had a hard time finding a new one. So I switched from mechanic work to body work at a friend of theirs shop, and I went into the body shop doing all the suspension work and mechanic work, and then, you know, kind of liked the body work end of it too, and gradually got into you know, framework, and then went into sectioning off. You know, sectioning quarter panels and fixing panels and replacing things. And it was pretty much a late model collision. We didn't do a lot of rust work unless it was something special. But it was a neat way to kind of learn a lot of different ends of the business. And then I always had something at home I was playing with, some muscle car or something that, you know, I was building, you know.
I've had cars for over 20 years, you know, when did I buy my first car? I think 96. I was 15 and had my first car. And I've just had cars ever since, worked on them, tinkered with them, modified them. And I don't know how to do anything else, really.
Yeah. So I don't know if our audience can still see us now. Barry kind of dropped off.
It says everyone can hear you on the side of my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let me, since we're here, how about if I'll do a quick walk around of my car I have behind me.
Yeah,
See if I can show you that. Let me see if I can flip my phone. I'm still new at this program here, but there we go. I think it'll work. All right. This is my 68 Mustang I have. It's about a 3-year project so far. And I got it. It was a 6-cylinder auto, which I was going to leave it that way. But, you know, the build kind of changed as things went along. But I started off with, I knew I had to do almost everything on it.
Yeah.
But I did a left rear frame rail on it, a right rear frame rail. The inside's full of parts, but I did floors in it. And then wound up changing. I had a 94 GT that got totaled. And I pulled the motor out of that. Somebody ran through a stop sign and took that core out. So put the changed it over from a fuel injection to a carburetor. It's because it fit better in the car. And then so I did that, and a couple frame rails up front, stuff like that. So it's coming along, but you know, it's one of those pastimes.
Hi, Barry. Barry's back.
Man,
You're back.
I don't know what happened.
That's a nice looking car, Harvey.
Oh, thank you.
Over here, for me to buy something like that, you'd be looking at $30,000.
Oh boy, I got mine for about $900 when I bought it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's got a lot of. It's like a Frankenstein. It's got so many cars incorporated into it. It's ridiculous. But nope, there we go. I forgot to flip me back.
Man,
I noticed. Was it a GT bonnet or Shelby bonnet on it with the reverse scoops? Is that right?
It was it's a regular 68 Mustang hood, but it's the one that's a little fancier. It has a couple scoops in it. And then whoever had it had hood pins cut into it. But my old hood was so rusted out that the front was actually completely disconnected from the back, and there was about an inch to spare. Like it was just missing about an inch of metal all the way around it. So that was on sale on Craigslist about 20 miles from my house, and it was $50, and it's absolutely rust free.
Yeah.
The guy said he had it, took it off for a race car back in like 1973. It was sitting in a spare bedroom inside his house the whole time. So I couldn't pass it up. It was a Ford hood, and I said, he said, you know, if the holes don't bother you, I said, I'll put hood pins back in it. Or fill them in, you know.
well, I'm glad y'all kept moving. I didn't know my computer just locked up. Everything just, the mouse wouldn't move, nothing. So I had to reboot. And I'm really surprised that the stream stayed going. I don't know how that.
Oh, we had a great wee chat there, Barry, while you were gone.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised it kept going. I thought it was just gonna, you know, shut off. But anyway, here we have Dave asking a question.
Falcons, yeah, heaps of them.
Yeah. Now I don't know which Falcon he's referring to. I know you've mentioned there's different years, you know. So I don't know which one he's referring to, but obviously you're more familiar with those cars than we are.
The Ford Falcon actually was being made right up until 2016, and then they discontinued with the Ford Falcon. Yeah. Pete Anderson.
I'm not familiar with Pete, but
if you guys go to my early videos from say 12 years ago when I was a real young fella, you'll see a lot of my early Falcons, two-door coupes. A lot of people in the US mistake them for a Torino, a 71 Torino.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, go through my early videos right back to the start, and you'll see a lot of my early videos of the Falcons I had. And yeah.
Now when we
And
talk
you'll
about
get it
that,
just our muscle cars where we had our own, the Falcon GT, the Holden GTS Monaro, which I know you guys are familiar with the later ones, but they were called the Pontiac GTO in America.
right?
But that was the later ones. Yeah. So yeah,
And
we had some cool stuff.
now the Falcon, we talked about this before, the like the Mad Max car, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's a two-door Falcon Coupe, Australian made.
Okay.
You could get them at options of a 6-cylinder, which was a 250 pre-cross flow, your 302 Cleveland, or your 351 Cleveland. You could get in that particular model.
I mean, it would be nice to have access to some of those here in the States, but obviously it's not something you can easily import.
They are over there.
Yeah.
I remember back in 2003, they had the 100 Years of Ford, and at Dearborn, they had about 40 of those Falcon Coupes that people
Wow.
own in the US. Yep.
Yeah,
I know there's a guy in Florida that has 4 Australian Falcons, and he actually has a Falcon Ute, his 1972 Falcon Ute that I used to own. And I sold it to a guy that put 4 in a container and got sent over to the States.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. I know that another car I drove was a 75 XB Falcon sedan, and it was just a 6-cylinder auto, and that got sent to Arizona. So that's after they saw Mad Max or the Road Warrior, I think you call it over there, or Fury Road or whatever it is. Some guys really liked the car and started buying them and replicating them.
Yeah. Yeah. In
So,
fact,
another Kiwi on there before, was there? Sorry, must someone New Zealand? Another New Zealand? Ian Paul? Yeah.
Ian Poole. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't notice it was New Zealand. I thought.
Yep.
I was thinking
Christchurch, New Zealand here.
There you go. It's funny you mentioned the Mad Max series and that sort of thing. I was watching a YouTube video about that, and they said that, you know, the original Mad Max, which was very low budget but very popular in the theaters, and then when they released the second one, I believe in Europe, in Australia, it was considered Mad Max 2 is what it was called. But here in the States, because of the limited release of the first movie, they did not call it Mad Max 2 because they didn't know people would know what it was. And they couldn't see them saying, well, it's a second one and what? What's the first one? So they had an initial release, and it didn't, I think if I remember, it didn't do very well. And then they re-released it the next year under the title The Road Warrior, and it took off. And so that's how that Mad Max became The Road Warrior. Is, you know, they didn't have the background that they had in Australia, and obviously New Zealand.
Very, very young Mel Gibson.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was a kid.
Yeah. Well, it's funny though, the timeline between the first Mad Max and the second one was only like 3 years.
Yes, that's right. Number one was 1979. It was released, and the second one was 82 or 83.
Yeah. And so, but you look at his
40-year-old movie.
You look at him between those two movies, he looks completely different.
Yep.
He looks like he's aged quite a bit, even though it's just been a short period of time. So, here you go, Brendan. Hammer Springs. Henmer.
Yep, Hamner Springs. Yep.
Yep.
Hot Pools. Yep, nice wee township.
So there you go. You got it.
About an hour and a half from here. Roughly.
Oh, well, there you go. You have a fellow New Zealander checking in, which is pretty cool. That's pretty good. We have 2 from New Zealand this week. And I think we had somebody from Brazil earlier, I think, and Tom from France, and
yeah,
I think we had Norway. I think we had Norway. So it's just still amazing. I've said it before, to have this idea that people from around the world communicating like this. Anyway, Leonard makes a comment. Those Falcons look like the Torinos from 70-71. Brendan, do you know about the guy? Oh, there you go. 4 Falcons that he wanted to restore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and are those cars, are they still around, available there? I mean,
A decent XA or XB Falcon Coupe, which is your 72 to 76 year. To buy a really, really nice V8 one, you're looking at about $60,000 to $80,000 New Zealand. You're looking at $20,000 for a rusty old banger that needs a total restoration. So, I mean, I was buying these cars 15 years ago for $5,000, and they were good cars, 351s or 302 Clevelands, you know, C4 trans, Borg Warner diffs, or if you had a GT, you had a 9-inch. But now there's obviously a lot more of them have disappeared due to rust, crashes,
Sure.
stuff like that. And here we are in 2020, and being realistic, I mean, the prices are just crazy prices.
now, do they make repair panels for those?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Very easy car to restore here because you've got places like Rare Spears that specialise in the Australian car market, the Holden or GM. You've got your Chrysler Valiant and your Ford Falcon. So easy to restore. But in saying that, if you have a Mustang here in New Zealand, you've got places right here in Christchurch like the Mustang Centre. They fix up Mustangs. They import a lot of late model stuff, but they do have repair panels. So that sort of stuff is still easily obtainable.
Okay.
But when
I
it
guess,
comes to stuff like my Ford custom line, that's a different story.
sure.
I can get in and out of sills, which a guy down bottom of the South Island makes, and that's it. Floor pan, stuff like that, I have to import from the US.
Okay. Now, for that model Falcon, like here in the States, you can buy every piece for a Mustang, or you can build a Mustang from, which I've proven.
Which you're doing. You're doing that right now. That's exactly right.
Can you do that with that car?
With the Falcon,
Yeah.
No.
So you have something to start from.
You need something to start from. Yes, you do. I don't know whether someone in Australia may be trying to suss something out or making a mold for a complete shell. If that ever happened, then I think that would sell like hotcakes. People would buy them because they'd be a brand new car.
Yeah.
Basically a brand new car.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yep. That's very true.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know, again, we talk about niche cars, the Torinos and stuff like that. Cougars are a very niche market. The El Camino is a very niche market. You know, there are people that love the El Caminos and there's people that hate the El Caminos. So, you know, or Utes, as you know, you would call them, I guess.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah.
you know, it's a niche market, and even Chevelles to a point, I think are being kind of overlooked now. They're not as popular as they were, say, 10 years ago. I think the Chevelle, like he's saying, it's kind of tapered off. Even the Camaros seem to have tapered off. You know, the big ticket items were 68, 69, you know, Camaros, because they were just so popular. And now it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like the numbers going down on those cars. And, you know, it may travel back up at some point, but, you know, the more rare, obviously the car is going to be worth more, like a Z28 Camaro or something like that. But it's interesting how that. I blacked out for a second. I'm realizing now, usually I do this for 2 hours. This has been 3. And it's been good. It has. But I realized I'm going to have to call it quits. There's a comment from Dave. Movies really push the price of cars up. Yeah, the Eleanor cars, you know, really jacked up the price of the 67.8 fastbacks. You know, and that affects it too, just like the John Wick cars, you know, brought up 69 Mach 1s again. People wanted to get those, and they still do. I still want one. If I find the right one, I'll get it. What's that?
Beautiful car. Beautiful car.
Yeah, if I find the right one, I'll buy it. but it has to be the right one. And I don't want one that's finished. I mean, it could be a VIN number. And I'll build my own car.
I always wanted the bullet Mustang. I think probably from about the time I was 5 years old, I wanted a bullet Mustang. And
yeah,
I saw them. They found the one they found in Mexico that was, basically a half a shell or less.
right.
And
Right.
that was about the same time I decided I better get on it and buy something before they're not obtainable anymore. And
Yeah.
that was when I came up with my coupe. And
You could have bought that car a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it was for
Didn't the
sale.
car sell over
Yeah.
for millions?
What
or something?
was it, 3.7 million or something?
Yeah, 3.7.
Yeah.
Which, it was. I did a video on that car. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I did. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny because that video, thanks to Rich from, if you haven't checked him out, Mustang Connection 1, go check out his channel. He has the knowledge of Mustangs. I mean, he can break down the numbers, and he really has a knack for knowing those Mustangs. I was with him at SEMA when that happened, and that's the first time we had met. We had talked many times, communicated on YouTube and stuff like that, and he was taking me around. He said, well, I'm going to do an interview with, I can't think of the gentleman's name at the moment, but he's going to do an interview with the guy. And he said, you want to come along? And I said, sure. And so I did the interview. Well, he did his interview, and I filmed him a little bit while he was interviewing. And then I thought, while I'm here, I'm just going to try to get an interview as well. So I did. Well, I didn't have permission. I didn't have permission from the handlers. I wasn't on the schedule, and I just kind of talked to him real quick. I said, would you mind doing it? He said, no, let's go ahead. So I did the interview with him. And in the meantime, and I may have mentioned this before, the guy from Mecum, he came up behind me, and he talked to the back of my neck, and he said, you need to wrap this up. There are other people here for real, for official interviews or whatever. And oh, okay. And then afterwards, he was pretty a little bit aggressive with me in a conversation. I said, look, I'm sorry, I didn't know that this was a scheduled thing, And then he calmed down pretty quick, and we actually have communicated by email several times now. He actually invited me to go to the auction. He wanted me to come down there and film and promote it, and I just couldn't get away from work at that time. But he was like, you have press pass, you can get in, do whatever you want. I was like, oh, well, I should have done that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap this up. Dave asked what color Mach 1 or Mustang. It would have to be Acapulco blue. Just the first color that comes to mind when you think 69 Mach 1. That would have to be the color. But anyway, it was great having Brendan on here again, and Harvey. It was nice having you on tonight's episode. Maybe we'll do it again. Hopefully you had a good time.
Absolutely.
Try to get people responding and asking questions, and I'm trying not to hog up the whole time talking, but I don't want to have dead space. Just so it's kind of the way I feel like I have to do something. But it's great having everybody here. I don't know how many we had total, but I know at one point we were over 60 people checking in with us. And here's one last from Australia. It's been great. Thanks, man, from Australia. Claudie Man.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Great.
Cool.
All right. Well, very good. We'll do this
Awesome.
again next Monday, again, 7 o'clock. I do have a question, and maybe somebody else can respond to this later. The question I have is, because there are people in Europe, obviously it's in middle of the night for them. I thought about doing an earlier in the day live stream, like for me, like 10 in the morning or something like that, which would offset the time schedule and maybe allow some people from Europe to interact more. So if somebody wants to respond to this, leave a comment on this video and let me know if that's a good idea. So I'm just thinking of different ways to get people involved that it's past their bedtime, let's say, but trying to get people involved. So I'm going to call it a night. Glad you're all here, and take care of yourselves. Wash your hands, stay inside, finish your projects. And anyway, we'll see y'all later.
Thanks a lot,
Take care of
Barry.
yourselves.
Have a
We'll see
good
ya.
night. We'll see
Have a
ya.
good night.